Say now. Let's go.
I wake up to the sounds of the silence that allows for my mind to run around with my ear up to the ground. I'm searching to behold the stories that I told when my back is to the world. Was smiling when I turned. Just where
shape, thinking out the box, I'm an astronaut. I'm blasted off the planet, rocking cause catastrophe, and it matters more because I had it now. I had a part of my freaking had to go in opposition, kinda shocking. They run static with precision. I'm automatic, quarterback, and
Welcome to the Death Star. What is good, Raider Nation? Welcome back to yet another episode of Raiders Live News Talk. I'm joined by my friends Noah and Yonder. Say what's up, everybody.
Hello.
What's up, Raider Nation?
What's up?
Yo, yo, yo. So like always, thank you guys for joining. Thank you to this panel for coming along this episode. Thank you to the mods in the chat. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. Thank you to everyone, watching and commenting along with us as we begin this episode. We got another great one for you. As we always do. Like always, before we get started, just a quick reminder to just take when you get a chance, just to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for all three of the platforms that we're broadcasting to. That's the DSR Aftermath YouTube channel, the Death Star Report YouTube channel, and the DSR Aftermath Twitch channel. If you don't have links or URLs to those channels, or if you're not sure where to find them, we should have links for you in the comments section very soon, in a couple of minutes. And as well, we'll be posting them, multiple times throughout this live show. So whenever you get a chance, like I said, like this video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, just to stay completely tapped in with us. So, because it helps us tremendously, so we can just deliver the content that we know you guys like. And so if you guys could do that for us, that'd be a great help, and we definitely appreciate it. So without further ado, let's get started. So, I'm sure many Raiders fans are finally happy that this tumultuous, up and down, mainly very disappointing season for the Raiders is over. We can finally look forward to what we have been looking forward to for months now, which is the offseason and how this team is going to rebuild and sort of recharge and get on the right track for the 2023-2024 season. Obviously, what we saw out of the last game of the season, which was obviously the very disappointing blowout, frankly, against our rivals, the Kansas City Chiefs, mainly was that Jared Stidham. He looked okay overall. He did all right. I mean, not horrible, not. He didn't cost us the game single-handedly with his play. In the beginning, if you ask me, first couple drives, he looked decent. But after that, especially that interception he threw into double coverage with, Matt Collins as a receiver, after that just kind of, went to crap, for lack of a better term. So with that said, as far as Jared Stidham is concerned, I personally believe that we could keep him, in the organization, in the building, definitely as a backup. Maybe very outside shot of being the starter, but I really don't think if we're in a win now sort of mentality that he is the guy to really focus on moving forward. So with that said, prime among the moves that this Raider team is going to have to focus on and probably end up making going into not only the draft, but somewhere along OTA's training camp, somewhere before this season begins, they're probably going to have to make some kind of a big quarterback move. And we've heard so many different things about not only rumors of what the Raiders are actually thinking of doing, but also the possibilities of what they could very well do, as well as as we all talked about throughout this season, building up the defense and addressing other positional needs that they that they definitely need. So why don't we just quickly because it was the last game of the season, as we always do, just go over a recap of this game against the Chiefs, because although it wasn't, we would have liked to knock the Chiefs down a peg, maybe screw up their playoff seeding, even though we really are trying to just secure our draft spot at this point in the season. So, but if you guys have any takeaways, anything you liked about any individual player, or anything you're looking forward to the next season that this team needs to work on, things of that nature, that you saw from this Week 18 game against the Chiefs, feel free to just express them here. So no, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. There are a few things that I remember mostly positive because that's what I tried to focus on in this game,
Right,
regular season finale.
right.
And there was one player in particular that I was very happy to see show up today or on Saturday, and it
Yeah,
was Clelin Ferrell. I believe he had 3 or 4 pressures, and he got a sack on Patrick Mahomes against their starting right tackle or left tackle, I believe, when he was in the game, and that makes me happy. And because I've been kind of on edge all season about if we want to bring him back as a rotational player, and we all know his story as a Raider,
right.
just terrible since we drafted him, since it was an overdraft, but he's developed, I think, in his scheme as the season's gone along, and it definitely helps that Chandler Jones has gone down for the season or went down for the season with that injury. So you were able to see more of Farrell and the other guys on there like Bauer, try and make it make it known that you want to play on this team next year. So that was something else I thought was cool. Amik Robertson, the cornerback, really did pretty well on the outside, all things considered, outside that first play to that number 84. I think he's a tight end. I don't remember his name for the life of me, but
Yeah,
he's had a
go ahead, go keep going.
he's had a really solid second half of the season, and in the past 2 weeks, he stepped up kind of pretty well in the place of Rocky Sin, who's been done for the season for the past 3 or 4 weeks with that injury. So there's something else that I thought was, nice to see. We finally saw him take that step up against such a, phenomenal, good team.
Right.
Can't speak. But those were the two noticeable things that I'm really happy with on this defense, that we see role players that we expected early on to do things that are actually contributing now in this rebranded role they get from this Patrick Graham system. And as a result of that, I don't think it'd be a bad idea to have Graham around for another season, all things considered, with how this, defense really wasn't that bad down the stretch.
Yeah. I mean, I do agree. I think Patrick Graham's job is safe, at least for now. I think with his history and his connections to the Patriot way and Josh McDaniels, what have you, I think they're still on the same page as far as the same sort of brand of football and the same kind of football players that they like. That like I said, Patrick Graham, his job is probably secure for at least the near foreseeable future. And yeah, I definitely agree. With as far as some individual players, not only in this game against the Chiefs, but throughout the season. We've seen some sort of bright spots. I think there is here, enough of a core really to build something off of as far as defense goes. I mean, like as you mentioned about Cleveland, to me, up until really, I would say the Steelers game, Cleveland was really not looking like he was gonna, earn any kind of like long-term deal or really any kind of future with this team. Obviously, having, declined his player up, being one of the three players whose player option was declined. It definitely seemed like he was going to be on his way out. For next year. But when Chandler Jones goes down in that Steelers game, Cleveland really started coming to his own. So, he definitely, I think, and also, having be able to get that sack and, a handful of pressures against a pretty good offensive line in the Chiefs. And also, a guy like Mahomes, who's notorious for extending plays and whatnot. I think he definitely was able to show enough when he really got that opportunity to prove that he definitely belongs on an NFL roster, definitely belongs somewhere in a D-line rotation. So as far as he goes, I guess at this point, just because of what he's done in the late season, I'd be upset to see him go. I guess overall with his production or lack thereof throughout the season, I could understand why they'd want to part ways with him. And then as far as Meek Robertson goes, I definitely think he could be a depth corner. To me, especially now, to me, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but there seems to be the NFL is trending towards taller corners. Obviously you have guys like Trayvon Diggs who are basically wide receiver convert, guys, things of that nature. So because of that, I feel like he could be part of like a dying breed as far as like undersized corners. And we saw, in that Chargers game, obviously, the touchdown he gave up to Keenan Allen, that was due to his height or lack of length, if you will. So because of that, I think he could still be a good depth corner. I just wouldn't totally be comfortable with him being one of the number one outside corners. I think he could definitely function in the slot. Obviously, what we know with Patrick Graham is sometimes he'll like to give a whole bunch of different looks. So maybe he could be thrown out there in some creative kind of package. But like I said, I definitely think he could be a guy that could be kept around as well. So those are definitely two guys for sure that I think show some bright spots. So would he combine that with ideally next year healthy Chandler Jones, who hopefully, as we've been hearing rumors about, hopefully he doesn't retire. So compare with those guys along with obviously Max Crosby, the heart of our defense. Hopefully, Nate Hobbs gets healthy, as well as Rock Ya-Sin. I think we definitely have a good, core at defense there. It's just a matter of probably on Patrick Graham's part, scheming a little bit better, as well as beefing up probably the linebacking core, which has been, riddled with injuries. As well as, I think the safety position group is pretty set at assuming Harmon, because Harmon stepped up in so many ways this year for us, assuming he stays with us because he is on the older side. But like I said, I think plus or minus, we do have a good core to build off of, defensively speaking. Yonder, is there anything you want to add?
To be honest with you, I didn't see the game. I went to watch the new Avatar movie. So
Okay.
I really went after the movie though. I looked at score and I saw that we were losing Bali. I was like, oh gosh, dang it! It was like 24-3, I think, when I saw. So I was like, oh gosh, dang it! Now what's going on?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I wasn't able to see the game in general. I just saw the score and that's it. So I have no clue on what happened.
it was, I don't know. I mean, look, between you and me, like, there was obviously some very questionable officiating on one key drive, which was, Raiders were down 14-3 pretty early on. I'm sure you saw the replay, what ended up being, they failed on 4th and goal to throw it to Adams. The corner was draped all over him, didn't call any kind of pass interference. The play before, arguably that was, some kind of defensive holding or pass interference on Waller, but 2 straight plays they didn't call it. And then, the Chiefs get the ball deep in their own territory because they stopped Raiders on 4th and goal. The Raiders, stop them on fourth down. They all of a sudden call, roughing the passer on Max Crosby. Then the very next play, I think it might have been Tillery, was some kind of one of the pass rushers just gets holded, very obviously. They don't call it. So, clearly it was one of those games that felt to me where like it was, it didn't seem to me like the Raiders themselves would have earned a win because they didn't. Overall, they did not play well. They only scored 13 points. But at the same time, it felt like, the refs were kind of making it so that it wasn't even going to, even look like it was going to be close because, if they call something favorably for the Raiders down there at the goal, it's probably going to be 14-10 and we have a ball game. I'm not saying the Raiders were going to win, but I'm saying, at that point, it would have been a lot closer. So, as far as this game is concerned, that was disappointing to see. And I think a lot of us can agree that at least with the Adams play, that should have been a pass interference, fresh set of downs, right at the goal line. Brand new drive at that point. But, other than that, I mean, yeah, like I said, I mean, Stidham looked okay. I mean, what do you have? One touchdown. He had the one late touchdown to Renfro. I thought that was a good ball. I thought his first couple drives were decent. But after that, to me, kind of faded. I mean, the other thing here is that the O line completely sold. Alex Bars had probably his worst game as a Raider. I haven't seen a lot of him outside of this year being a Raider, but he didn't really play well outside of that. So there are a lot of things. Once again, we have to ask ourselves: were the Raiders just being bad on purpose? Because this is a team that was very close to beating them, early in the season. So,
the first game I saw that and I was like, what in the heck?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Anyway, cut. They have a lot to work on, a lot to beef up on, position wise throughout this roster, a lot to work on. So we'll see what kind of moves they make because they're gonna have to probably start making moves pretty soon, or at least try to informally.
They
agree
just
on
they just came out with a they just came out with a report. Sorry, Jeff. I was gonna say
no, go good, man.
You good?
No, they said that just recently there was a report from JPA Football saying that the Raiders are already in discussions with extensions on Jacobs right now.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I have heard that. I have heard that, pretty much everything I've seen is that the Raiders are likely to retain him in one way or another, which is obvious. Honestly, I mean, the guy saved Josh McDaniel's job, or at least a lot of embarrassment because, without him.
No, honestly, he saved his own career too because we were gonna trade him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We declined that 5th-year option. If he didn't ball out like he did, he was gone mid-season or heck, even if Zeus played to a phenomenal level, which he didn't, we'd be starting him. They trade Jacobs in the mid-season.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, guys when they're in a contract year, they have something to prove. A lot of times there is that extra motivation, to really play your best. But even in his non-contract years, I mean, pretty much, hell of a year every year. I mean, 1,000-yard season, I think every year other than last year, right? Because
he really could have been more than that if he just didn't deal with a lot of he always dealt with a lot of back problems and knee problems. That's because they pound the ball with him with a terrible offensive line. He's averaged his worst yards per carries his second and third season, but this year he averages highest.
Yeah, that's a good thing for us and him.
Second best. His rookie season was his second best.
Yeah, I guess right. Yeah, because let's see, 2019. Yeah, he had a really great year.
Yeah.
Well, 2020 is a Pro Bowl.
2020 put up 1,000, but really rough 1,000.
Yeah.
Right.
And then last year he put up 800 something.
Right, with all those injuries, which was still, to me, was pretty miraculous. But yeah, I mean, and Noah and I were talking about this, before the show started. I'm going to riot. I'm going to lead a violent protest, if he is not named first team All Pro, because I've been hearing all this BS, and I guess this was before this week of games happened because Henry leapfrogged Chubb. But I've been hearing all this stuff about Chubb. Basically, everything I've heard about Chubb could be applied to Josh Jacobs.
Dude, I guarantee you, if the Raiders had the Browns offensive line, dude, Jacobs is putting up 2,000, yo. I'm
Oh,
saying,
Might definitely have
Jacob.
it.
Oh,
but I'm not gonna discredit Nick Chubb. Like he's still a good player. I'll
Yeah.
say it.
Yeah.
He can create his own plays, but I'm saying you got to remember that offensive line is like ranked top 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like with all like the changes that the offensive line went through this year, like especially if you remember early on in the year, McDaniels wasn't really sure like what it was going to happen. Andre James
Yep.
missed I think at least a game, because he left he left the Chargers game on the ambulance or something. So
Concussion, I
Parham
think.
had to play a game at center. Alex Bars was out for at least a game. I think after the Rams game. So there was that change. We had to play. What's his name?
Hey, at the end of the day, looking
Johnson.
forward at the off season, if you really look at it, Ziegler has a lot to play with. He has the 7th overall pick plus another 8 more. And then once he clears up Carr, or if he decides to, once he cuts Carr, because we have to cut Carr before the Super Bowl, right? To keep
Right.
it.
Well, I think it's like 3 days after the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Because then what's it called? It'll go to 33. So you cut
Right.
Carr, you get 60 million. And now they're already in talks with Jacobs. So I mean, like that's probably a guarantee that their car is gonna go very soon. Because there's no way Jacobs is gonna take a huge payload out of that. So
Yeah.
Right, and I think, and I don't think they can officially make a trade until the league year begins.
yeah.
But they apparently can, by rule, informally agree on a trade. So they can like engage.
They just
in
have to
talks.
wait till the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like 3 days after the Super Bowl is their window to trade Carr, I think. Let me try to pull up the article I was reading. But yeah, I mean, obviously, and this is sort of like the conversation I was having on our last show is that like the problem with like trading Carr is that, I mean, we can't rule out that other GMs are going to be stupid, which is definitely possible. But at the same time, if they're not going to be stupid, they could look at it as, we have leverage in the sense that the Raiders have a window to trade Carr. Otherwise, they're going to have to release him or they're going to have to pay him all this more money. So because of that, they could just wait until the Raiders release him and they can get him for free.
Mm-hmm.
Or the Raiders would probably have to sweeten the deal, like package him in with other things such as other players, other draft picks, what have you, to the point where it might not be worth it. So unfortunately,
Do you think it's possible that Carr could restructure?
I don't think they're going to be doing anything like that. The bridge is already broken. That's my opinion on this.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like everything you said about I'm a Raider for life, all that. Like, I think all of that went in the toilet with the way in which the season ended up going, especially after the Steelers game.
Yeah.
McDaniels pretty much threw him under the bus.
Yeah.
Carr seems to be an emotional guy, so yeah, he could very honestly just say "fuck you" because, like I said, I mean, he doesn't owe anything to the Raiders, and from like a contract standpoint, he doesn't have to, because either they trade him or they just release him, and then it's just like he's free to he can go anywhere pretty much. So, it's just like, if teams like, the Colts, who have been rumored to have eyes on him for years now, the Patriots obviously tried to make a, run at him before Gruden shut that down a couple of years ago. Whatever the case may be, it could just be a clean slate, a much easier, transaction. It wouldn't have to involve, any team giving up any draft capital or other personnel, things of that nature. But I don't know. Just to me, it just seems like, like I said, like the rest of the league has leverage against the Raiders in the sense that like there's no saying that they have to they have to meet the deadline because it's not their deadline, it's the Raiders' deadline. So I don't know, I mean, I would hope, because my sort of idea was that if they can trade Carr for a first round pick, which is now that you could argue is somewhat in jeopardy. because he had, arguably his worst season in years. So maybe, a team would want to lowball him, but assuming that they could get a first round pick for him, they could trade up in the draft to, and a team like the Bears would be perfect for that because you could give, even though they have the number one pick now, you could give them 2 first round picks. They could, use that to surround Justin Fields with weapons or, an O line.
Uh-huh.
The Bears need a lot of help at pretty much every position.
Yeah.
So it's possible that something like that could go down. Although now, I mean, the second pick was one thing, but now that the Texans screwed that up with giving up the
I think
first
there's going to be a whole lot of teams that are going to try to trade with Chicago.
Yeah.
Because not only because Houston was locked in on Bryce Young, now the Bears could possibly like screw them up and trade with someone.
Right. Yeah, and then okay, so I think I found the article. So a decision on Carr's future in Las Vegas could be expedited by his contract. His $32.9 million base salary for 2023 and $7.5 million of his 2024 base salary becomes fully guaranteed if he is still on the Raiders roster 3 days after the Super Bowl, per NFL Network. Trades cannot be official until the start of the new league year on March 15th, though they can be agreed to before then. So there can be like an agreement on a trade 3 days after the Super Bowl. So that's still a relatively tight window. They only have pretty much a month to 3 weeks to work with here to get something done. And obviously, so if the Raiders aren't able to find a trade partner for Carr, well, and once again, that's the other thing. He has a no trade clause. So once again, if he's already pissed off, he could just say, no matter what the team is, he could just say no, because if he knows that, the Raiders could release him to avoid being on the hook for more than $40 million in guaranteed money, and he's just free and on the streets, he's free to do whatever he wants. So as far as Carr goes, Carr is really, holding all the cards.
Yeah.
But the car is driving itself at this point. So, I mean, he is still under contract, but you're right, because of the no trade clause. Like I said, every each of the 31 teams in the National Football League that the Raiders suggest, you can just say, screw you, I'm not going to waive my no trade clause.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure no trade clause is just like a short list of teams that he already has predefined. But I guess in general, doesn't it just mean that like you can just say yes or no as far as where you get traded to? Isn't that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how the trade clause works. You can choose which team what team you belong to can trade you to, and you can deny any trade that goes between two teams, even if they have, like, for example, if the Raiders and Packers make out a deal that sends Carr to Green Bay, Carr doesn't have to agree to the deal, and if he doesn't, that deal falls through. That's kind of how that works.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So at the end of the day, if Carr's really pissed off at the Raiders, he could, they could suggest any of the 31 other teams in the National Football League, and he could say, no, I don't want to be traded. And then it's like then you get to the point where it's like 3 days after the Super Bowl, or it's getting to that point, and you're just like, well, we have to release you, otherwise we're on the hook for the, the $40 million that would be fully guaranteed to you. So I don't know, it's tough, I unfortunately, I think the way it's looking, they're going to just have to release him. So, and, they're going to just have to deal with the pick that they have, which is, the number 7 pick. I guess that would put them in the sweepstakes for Levis, a guy like Will Levis. I was thinking maybe
they would go quarterback.
Yeah.
Because honestly, because I feel like, what's it called? I mean, I know it's not right to go for Brady or anything like that, but I'm saying the window is still open, and I think McDaniels is going to consider it. Because what's it called? There was a report that came out that Brady was like not comfortable in the Bucks system, their offense and
Right.
their coordinator, like the plays are so messed up. And so when he was playing against the Falcons, he was calling his own plays, I heard. So, like I feel like overall, I mean, if Brady wants to come here, he's gonna be in a system that he already knows. And I mean, shoot, uh I mean, you won't get the mobility, but as long as what's it called? Just if you're gonna get Brady, you're gonna most likely here's what I'm gonna see from this draft. If they draft Will Levis, then they're gonna go Will Levis and the rest is defense, or they're gonna look,
Right.
or if they go on full on defense and offense, like work on the O line and work on like DB or something like that, then most likely it's a hint that they're gonna go for a quarterback in free agency. Oh, because there's like a bunch of names, and I know for a fact McDaniels knows like 3 or 4 quarterbacks that know the system,
Mhm.
and probably the least, even though this is like I really don't want him to come here. It probably like there's Brady, Garoppolo, Brissett. I would my least favorite option would be Garoppolo. I just don't like this dude. Like I don't want to see him in a Raider jersey. So as long as it's
Yeah.
if it's Brady, dude, like I'll be fine with it.
Trust me, I don't want to see Brady neither. But if it happens, it happens.
I rather see Brady than Garoppolo.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the thing. Like, what
Yeah.
if McDaniels is here? Because I've also heard this. I heard this report today that like the Raiders are also potentially targeting Jimmy G. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I get that Jimmy G. He's been clutch in a lot of moments, and he's taken a team to a Super Bowl, albeit with a run heavy offense. You know, but going through an entire season with the injury proneness he has, like, what does he offer you that Carr doesn't? Like, to me, it's just if that's your big quarterback move, I just I really think McDaniels is as lost as he really seems to be, because that he could just be out for like 6 to 7 weeks, if not the entire season, by week 4 with just a run of the mill Jimmy G injury. So I really hope that's not the case. I don't. I happen to think that's not. I can't believe that's the most realistic candidate for the Raiders. I mean, the more I think about it, the more I think Brady
We
makes.
get Jimmy G, I'm shooting myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
I'm not even gonna worry about this season. If they get Jimmy G, we're getting Caleb Williams, I'm guessing.
Well, that would be. Hey, that would I would take that. I mean, once again, it would be another tank, and tanks suck to go through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that that could be in play as well if we're going with a quarterback depth chart of Chase Garbers, Jared Stidham, and Jimmy Garoppolo, especially an injured Jimmy Garoppolo. But
The
I
overthinking is
I don't know.
terrible.
We'll have to see. But why don't you? Yeah. So Ray, while I have you, know we're talking about the off season. Why don't we just go around the panel and just talk about the topic in general, like what the team's plan are for the off season, anything you think the Raiders are likely to target, any player
Oh,
or any positional needs. Ready?
so yeah. So, you know, obviously this, we're all looking forward to this offseason. We have the number 7 overall pick. We're pretty good right now. And so the names I'm really looking at for this team, what's it called? I was like, as we were talking about, there's still a possibility. I'm not saying it would happen, but if Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers would come here and make a statement in the team, and only like not even just to throw it out, like last
Mhm.
night against the Lions, Rodgers was gonna talk to JMO, or JMO was supposed to exchange the jersey, and
Right.
he's like, I think I'm gonna hold on to this one. So now every NFL fan and everybody in the NFL is wondering, what does he mean by that? Is he going to
Right.
retire? Is he going to go to a new team? What is the future for Aaron Rodgers? He just got that contract extension, right? And
Right.
is gonna really be interesting with what the quarterbacks this offseason. Plus I mean, I understand they're pretty old, like Rodgers, Brady, Garoppolo is pretty old now. He's like what,
Mhm.
29, 30. So I mean the names it's really gonna just it's really gonna come down to what Ziegler and McDaniels are gonna look for. They're definitely like I guarantee you, like they're trying to bring every single Patriot player they can, and that knows the scheme because they know they're gonna have success because they've worked with them before. And so
Right.
like and it showed this year too. Like they brought Chandler, former Patriot. They brought Duron Harmon, former Patriot. They brought
Yep.
one of the linemen. I'm pretty sure was from the Patriots too. Forgot his name.
Luminor, yeah.
Luminor, Patriot.
Yep.
There's just names. Brennan Brown, Patriot, or not Brennan Brown. What's his name? Uh,
Bolden.
Bolden. Yeah,
Yeah, Brandon Bolden and
Brandon
also
Bolden, former
Jacob Johnson.
Patriot.
Jacob Johnson.
Jared Stidham, former Patriot. So it's like they're just trying to build the Patriots just around us.
Right.
And like, and I understand like, they've always been a successful team if you really notice throughout the years. So if this is the direction they're going, I have no problem with it. And I think what they're trying to do is like remember when the Raiders traded Randy Moss away to the Patriots back
Yeah,
in
Yeah.
07?
that really killed us too.
That year they literally I know they fleeced us, but notice how they had a star receiver around them.
Yeah.
And just all of a sudden they just start like that's where they go
They
on their
were
dynasty
16-0.
16-0 season, dude. Like I'm just saying, dude, if this is how it's gonna go, dude, I mean I'm up for it. Like
The funniest thing is they went 16-0 and then they lose against
they
the
somehow
Giants in the
lost,
Super
yeah.
Bowl. How in the heck?
But it's really crazy.
Eli Manning.
That's the funniest thing I've seen that I found out of the Super Bowl 42. Like,
But
how would you lose against the Giants in the Super Bowl?
that
It's
team
when
was
16-0. How do you
Yeah.
lose against the Giants?
Hey man, yeah, only team to lose to the only team to beat the Patriots that year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But as I was gonna say, there is some names like what's it called? Like how I said, it's gonna really depend on the draft and what they're gonna do. So if they go full on, if they go Will Levis at quarterback and they try to just work on O line or defense, depends. I could probably see them going DB possibly. There's some names out there. Marcus Peters is one of them. He's a free agent. I also was looking at Jesse Bates. Jesse Bates is also a free
Yeah.
agent too. I would love to see Jesse Bates there because then him, Merrick, and Duron Harmon, that'd actually be a really solid area. Plus, pretty sure he could play sub linebacker too. So him and Diablo could, get in that package or with Perryman too. I really like that. I really wish we can get a Jesse Bates. That'd be a huge one for us. Helps out the secondary a lot. Key player too.
Yeah, and I remember he was rumored at the beginning of this year or in the offseason, right before the season started. We were rumored to possibly make a run at him. But if I remember correctly, the Bengals franchise tagged him or something like that.
Yeah, they franchise tagged him because they
Yeah.
didn't pay him.
Right. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's possible that obviously being a big part of a defense that for 2 years now, has helped the team be pretty
It's just
pretty
just
relevant.
if you're gonna bring Brady here, you're gonna need him to give you're gonna need to give him a good defense because
And
it's shown with the Bucks. Like he has a good offense around him, but if he doesn't have a stellar defense, it's gonna be the Derek Carr situation. Like he's gonna have a shit defense and still put up good points on offense, even with a terrible team.
Right.
So yeah, man. I think overall, if they really look at this, if once they get rid of Carr or whatever they're gonna do with him, you just got to look towards the defense and work on offensive line because Brady has he has Devontae, Renfro, Hollins, Waller, Jacobs. Like this dude, if he or just throwing out Brady if he's there, or any quarterback, honestly, even Garoppolo, like dude, he's working with stellar players. I know it's not like what he's working with in San Francisco, but it's pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, obviously, and the other thing to consider about Brady is that, you know, just being Brady, almost kind of does the GM work for you in the sense that, like, just because he's Brady, he can attract so many top tier talent from around the league who want to play even on in a win now, maybe 1 year deal kind of a thing, just to try to make a run at a Super Bowl because they know it's Tom Brady. So that in and of itself is the value right there. Obviously Brady becomes an unrestricted free agent going into this offseason. So he's definitely playing, I think, for a lot of reasons. I hate to say it, but as much as I personally have bashed Tom Brady because he's obviously been the villain for pretty much all of my football watching career. As many in Raider Nation as well as a bad mouth. I mean, I will say that if he brings us a Super Bowl, that will make up for the Tuck rule. That's all we can say.
It would, but
you know,
would if he actually gets us it.
Right. So I'm saying like that's why I think it's worth the roll of the dice because first of all, like I said, he can attract so much top tier talent to come and play, and all of a sudden we look like we'll have a really good team. But at the same time, if he does pull it off, then I don't think we could be too mad about the Tuck rule thing anymore. Because obviously maybe Mark Davis will make him admit it's a fumble in order to come here, but. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that is the most logical offseason move to make a quarterback, as much as a lot of people might hate it. No, is there anything you wanted to add about any offseason moves you'd like to see, or any rumors you've heard, anything of that nature?
Well, I think we've kind of talked about how this team really needs another edge presence and maybe some decent linebackers outside of Denzel Perriman.
Right.
And Perriman himself is getting older. He's gonna be 29, I think, if he's not 29 already. No, he's already 30 years old. So
30?
He's already 30 years old.
Oh boy.
So if you're not gonna bring him back because he's been really solid for this team, you might as well try and find a replacement. And you have other guys out there, young guys who even though they haven't been as good as expected, you have players like Devin Bush and Alex Anzalone, Ezekiel Turner out there on NFL rosters that have had pretty solid seasons that I wouldn't be opposed to bringing in. You also need another tight end because I highly doubt that Foster Moreau gets re-signed, considering his collapse to the end of the season in terms of production and his effectiveness to this team. So there's lots of holes on this team going forward, and I think that if you are going to try and go after a QB in the free agency period, you have to put this draft all defense only, or other way around. If you're going to get a QB in the draft, you need to be on top of the defensive free agents in this period.
Right. Yeah. As Ray mentioned earlier, another possibility for sure is just getting a quarterback. Because obviously what they could do is you get a win now guy like Brady. You draft a quarterback with your first round pick who could sit behind Brady and learn not only how Tom Brady plays but how he works in the McDaniel system and sort of be exposed from an early age coming right into the league into the McDaniel's sort of philosophy and whatnot. So that's definitely a possibility as well. To me, that makes the most amount of sense. And then of course you have a guy like Jared Stidham who has been with McDaniels for the past several years now, whether New England or here in Vegas, who could teach the playbook to not only this new quarterback, like a rookie quarterback, but to the entire offense in general. So to me, that's sort of like trio of Stidham, Brady, and probably realistically, if we're going to go quarterback, Levis. That trio probably makes a lot of sense based on where the team is at now, and also like not wanting to hemorrhage your future for the sake of being totally win now, because nobody wants to be the Rams. Nobody wants to be a team that maybe wins the Super Bowl, but then what kind of future do they have? Right. So yeah, I mean, I do agree though. No, like defense should probably be prioritized. There's a lot to get, in this draft. One guy that I've seen, as far as what you're saying about, an edge rusher, defensive end kind of guy, is a guy, Zach Harrison out of Ohio State. Apparently this draft is supposed to be the year of the Buckeye, with, so many Ohio State guys apparently being, very highly touted in the draft. Another guy for lucky, maybe if we're going to talk about the other side of the ball, also from Ohio State, is Paris Johnson. So maybe we go that way as well. But yeah, I definitely agree. There's a lot to get on the defensive side. I definitely think through the draft we could beef up this team defensively. If not, like you said, maybe go out for some free agents. Yonder, was there anything you wanted to add?
Probably whoever can get us a trophy.
Facts.
That if it's Tom Brady, then so be it. I couldn't care less. I just want us to at least win a Super Bowl or a playoff game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So obviously the biggest drought for this franchise as of now is the playoff win.
Yeah.
Obviously hasn't happened in that this year would have been 20 years. So now I guess it's going to be 21 years.
21 years
next year. So that's the one thing, where we'd like that to be reset as well, because obviously, in 2016, 2021, having made the playoffs, that at least ended the playoff drought. So that's probably the one major thing on this team's agenda, or should be at least going into next year, especially with the roster that they have. There's really no excuses. I know this year was pretty much a tank, but after a while, enough is enough. Especially 2 years into the McDaniel system. Go ahead.
The art of tanking is really, really terrible, and just stop it, please. Make it stop.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things. It's very tough to go through as a fan, but in terms of long term, you do kind of understand it. But the thing is, Mark Davis is obviously putting a lot of faith in Josh McDaniels, and we're going to see what McDaniels does to replace who he's getting rid of, obviously. So we're waiting on that, and I mean, like you said, whatever gets us a trophy is is the most important part. So if there's a method to the madness, then that's that's all we can hope for at this point. That's what we're looking forward to. So yeah, I mean, and as Ray mentioned, a guy like Jesse Bates, that would be great to have. That'd be a guy to get in this offseason, especially Deron Harmon. I feel like, I mean, what kind of a contract is he on? Does anyone know what his?
Let me look that up right now.
Okay.
I don't even know.
Because I just have this feeling that he seems like he's super old and like.
Yeah, he's on a 1-year deal with us.
Yeah, so that there's no guarantee of that. Although with the way he's played, as long as he still wants to play football, so he's 31. Okay, so he's not quite that old. He's not as old as I thought he was, but
yeah,
we could definitely get a couple more years out of him. I think the way he played, especially the big plays he's made, whether it was like a turnover or against the Cardinals, it was that big pass breakup in overtime. Although we blew it anyway. But with the big plays he's made this year, I don't think I really can't think of another guy to re-sign, or who should be on who should have the Rays should make a bigger priority to re-sign. But yeah, if you get a guy like Jesse Bates, that obviously is a huge W as well. Is he a free safety as well, or
yeah, he's a free safety as well.
Okay. Yeah, so exactly. So if Deron Harmon doesn't work out, or even if you keep both of them, maybe for depth, the safety position group could be really good for us next year. So that would definitely be a huge free agent get if we were able to get someone like that. Yeah. So obviously, that's the defense obviously is a big concern, whether we do it through the draft or we do it through free agency. I mean, honestly, looking at this team and what they've done, what they did this year, and who performed the best in general versus who they also used and gave reps to in this regular season. I unfortunately don't really know if I trust this regime in the draft. I mean, because a lot of their draft picks this year weren't really made use of, which is just really frustrating because you think this team believes in a guy by drafting him, and when you just don't use him, it's just kind of like wasting the pick. It's wasting the draft capital. So But at the same time, Ziegler did really make a lot of great moves, just in terms of guys that are already veterans in the NFL that he brought over here. Whether it was obviously Devontae Adams, on paper the Chandler Jones move looked great, although obviously that really didn't come to fruition until really late in the season, if at all. Um, like we said, Deron Harmon, that was a very underrated pickup. So I mean, this is definitely. I wouldn't be surprised if this team just goes through the off season market, excuse the veteran free agent market, or maybe even make some trades, especially beef up this defense. Um, no, why don't we go to your next topic, which is just I believe you a biggest surprise and bust of the season. Do you want to go
Yeah,
first and give go for it.
yeah, I can do it. So, the season's wrapped up, and we had a bunch of predictions in the preseason
Right.
about who we would think would be the best players on this team and who would, be shockers in a negative way. But after, that's preseason. In retrospect, there's been a few players that have, both exceeded our expectations and have, been disappointments. And I got a few players right here on both sides of the ball that I think really uh, shined in their own ways. And I think we can start this, surprise of the season off with Josh Jacobs. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's self-explanatory. Dude had an excellent year. He had like 98 yards per game. He averaged 5 yards per carry, 1,650 yards, 12 TDs on the ground. He had a huge 300 plus yard game in Seattle that ended up getting Offensive Player of the Week. A bunch of 52 catches, I think, on the season. Um, I don't think he had any. I think he had only one lost fumble all season. He did lose 3 fumbles on the year. He had 93 rushing first downs, um, yards after contact. He had over 800, which is insane for a running back.
Yeah.
Over half his yards came from that. So, you have to give your hats off, tip your caps to Josh Jacobs
Mm-hmm.
balling out in a contract season. And some other guys on the offense I want to give props to were Jermaine Illuminor, who I thought was a terrible decision to trade for him in
Mm-hmm.
the offseason, and he shut me the hell up. So, there goes that. And then Matt Collins, who we only expected to be a special teams, performer.
Right.
And not only did he exceed in being an excellent gunner, but he also stepped up big time as a second receiver when Renfro and Waller went down with their injuries for the majority of the mid-season. So, you
And
have
I'm
that
just
to think as well.
That's the thing, dude, with Patriot players, dude, and I know Matt Collins is not a Patriot, but dude, with Matt Collins, dude, he's opened up. He never really had that chance getting undrafted and going to Philly and then going to Miami, and now he's actually having a chance as a wide receiver three, and he's doing wide receiver three things, like
Right.
what can you expect? I mean, like in that Rams game when he was doing those jet sweeps, I like what he was doing, and
Mm-hmm.
that game against Tennessee was, some like I was like, yo, this dude
Yeah.
might be, something else, dude. Like on some like he might have been like that game was so stellar. Like I'm just
That
saying, like Mac Hollins in his this year, I think his second year with us, I think might be major improvement trying to involve his role. He's a big jump ball receiver. Just I don't know what his main struggles. I mean, just being consistent is his main problem. But
Mm-hmm.
what can you expect? He's a wide receiver three.
Right.
mhm. That wraps up my, I guess three main players on this offense that did improve.
Mm-hmm.
Before I go to the defense, I'm going to talk about players on the offense that disappointed, and there was really only one player that I could say disappointed, and I'm not sure if you guys would agree with me, but I think Derek Carr definitely disappointed as the quarterback of this team.
Mm-hmm.
Granted that new system again, but it was a familiar system to him. He ran the same sort of why can't I remember the system name under Bill Musgrove when he was in 2015 and 2016, and even with the new terminology and supposedly more advanced play calling as opposed to Gruden, he didn't step up to the expectations. He had only 60% completed or percentage of completed passes only above 60%. He had 14 interceptions in 15 games. He had a stretch where he wasn't turnover prone, and then after I believe the Seahawks game, everything just fell off a cliff. His yards per attempt were the lowest it's been since 2017. Apologize for that. He evaded less sacks in his career, or his sack evaded percentage was the lowest of any point in his career. He took a lot more sacks than he needed to. It's just a very bad year. I would have to look at his player wins above replacement to see exactly how bad of a season it's been. But it was just a very sad season in terms of production for DC, and it eventually cost him his starting job and eventually his place on the team. So, there's that to think of as well. So, thoughts on that? Any other players you guys might think would be disappointments or busts in the offensive category?
I mean, I would definitely, I definitely like Ray's pick about, Matt Collins being the biggest surprise. Just because, obviously, yeah, he found a way to, carve out sort of a niche, on multiple sides of the ball, not only offense, but also, on special teams. Like special teams, it really kind of seemed like AJ Cole found like his complement in terms of like, with his, great leg, he would boot the ball way downfield. But you put it in play, he'd give Matt Collins a chance, who with his good speed and, really great talent as, a gunner, just get down the field and just pin the ball deep. And, in terms of field position, that's huge, and we, even though AJ Cole had an incredible year, probably the best of his career last year, he never really quite had a guy who was just an X factor like that in that part of the special teams unit, the punt team. So, and not only that, he seems like a great locker room guy. He just seems like a crazy, just happy-go-lucky guy that you can't really ever be mad at, which teams need because, a lot of guys who are very serious and like to, just play it 100% and not really, kind of just remember that it's football, it's a game, and you're supposed to have fun. So for that reason, I definitely like, I definitely like Matt Collins for all those reasons, and I think they definitely should keep him because, as Ray also said, he also really did a lot of great things in certain cases as a wide receiver 3. I mean, I still think, as I've said throughout the season, they need to find a true wide receiver 2. And what I mean by that is, yes, technically, if we're talking about, second and third options, a healthy Renfro and Waller would be that. But, if we're really talking about rounding out this offense, I think the one thing that they're missing is, a guy who is not at Devontae's level, because very few people are, obviously, but a guy who really can, you know, really fill in that role of, lining up across the field from him and, running a lot of the same routes, but being open a lot of the times when Devontae's, double teamed or when the defense is schemed to stop him or contain him. And I don't think we really had that because, unfortunately, with the Waller and Renfro injuries, Matt Collins, did his best. He did a lot better than a lot of people thought, than we all thought, as a wide receiver this year. But I just think there's something there that's missing that, I think they need to get. But well, like I say, Matt Collins, he definitely, left it all on the field for the Raiders this year, and I can't thank him enough for that. And I definitely did not see it coming. This is a guy I think at most had like 4 touchdowns before coming here, so that was crazy to see. As far as a bust goes, this one's kind of tough. I see what you're saying with Carr. I did see something today, though, actually, a video of, I don't know if he was on the podcast itself, but some sort of podcast account posted it to their Instagram account. And it was Brady Quinn, formerly with the Browns and then ultimately with the Broncos. And he was actually traded to the Broncos when McDaniels was still the coach there. And he recalled, he told a story of asking Kyle Orton, who was the quarterback that Josh McDaniels traded for in exchange for trading away Jay Cutler to the Bears. And apparently, Kyle Orton, one of his biggest takeaways of the McDaniel system was that it was very hard to get used to the offense. And ironically enough, just like Carr, he threw the most interceptions of his career that year that he was with the Broncos under McDaniels. So I think what we definitely could say about, in defense of Carr and, to be fair to him, in the very least, with the McDaniel system, there is a learning curve and it's not going to happen overnight. And that's probably with pretty much any quarterback. It's just that, um, McDaniels just really didn't want to stick with Carr long term. So for that reason, he was only given this 1 year to really figure out everything. But at the end of the day, I think what a lot of players are looking for is just to be able to play football, and they just want things to be simplified to a certain extent, and that's not apparently what McDaniels wants. So I I don't think I could totally agree in that sense. Having seen that today, it kind of changed my opinion slightly on Carr. So I don't know if I want to say he's the biggest bust. To me, the bus is kind of chill. I'm trying to think. Because to me, the biggest one of the personnel wise, the biggest disappointments were injuries. Like guys were just injured. Like people were willing to to throw guys like Waller and Renfro under the bus, but they were just injured. They frankly just were not healthy enough to play for most of the season. So
Yeah, that's kind of the decision I had as well because you had a lot of players that had injury problems throughout the season, and
I guess
Carr was there most of the season, so it just makes sense.
right. I guess I would probably go with a guy like Foster just because I obviously last year he had a great year. He came up big for them in a lot of ways. He was a big part of the offense in certain games and certain moments, and for him to do the certain things that he did, um, that they were disappointing in a lot of ways. So I would probably say he'd probably be my biggest disappointment as far as a guy that really didn't play up to par in a lot of ways. Like the game against the Steelers was just unacceptable, I would say. So I'd probably have him as my biggest plus, but at the same time, he definitely did come up big with us. Like that catch he made against the Seahawks, that was super clutch, and it was a great catch. So you got to give him credit for that. So I personally am still in Foster's corner, and I think that if this team gives him a chance, this coaching staff gives him a chance, he can still sustain a pretty good year in production for this team. Ray, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, dude, I mean, to be honest, my biggest well, you guys said like one player that did good this year and one that did disappointed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
biggest surprise and bust of the season.
Oh, okay. My biggest surprise, I think, this year will probably be what's his name? Frick, what's his name? I'm trying to remember. I think it was Munford. Even though he
Yeah.
really didn't get a huge chance, I mean, I probably put him as my I couldn't say surprise or best player or something. I could
Mm-hmm.
probably say like somebody that's underrated and is really good. I'd say
Right.
Munford only because the flashes that we've seen of him in the run formations, he can actually have major impact. And
yeah, he's effective.
dude, he's a monster. He's like what 6'8", 3
Yeah.
something. And I feel like this dude needs a chance, and he can really, I mean, what's the worst you can get out of him, dude? Dude, some that with that much talent in him, and and I mean, I guess the real player I can really say that besides him, if you don't want me to count that, I'd probably just say Parham. Parham played to perfection. You know, being a third round guy, and I feel like he was probably the biggest steal out of our draft class. So, I mean, yeah, Munford and is my underrated player, and I guess my best player was probably Parham. He was probably one of the best run blocking guards or something like that. Parham.
Mm-hmm.
He was pretty good this year, and I mean, I give him a lot of respect. That offensive line isn't even good to be isn't the best we've had, and I mean, he played a huge role in it. And I mean, and for a player that disappointed me this year, it's kind of a toss up between Carr and maybe Renfro. And the only reason why I'm saying Renfro is because there's games where literally Renfro has costed us 3 games. And that Chiefs game, you can put blame on Renfro, but you can also put blame on Devontae because he ran the wrong route, I'm pretty sure. But I mean, just overall, Renfro, hasn't really performed, and I think it's only because of the system he's in.
Right.
Because he was really good in Josh or not Josh's John Gruden's system, and with Josh's, I think he's just like the routes are a little harder for him or something like that, where he's not producing as much. So I mean, like, yeah, that's really it. And, I mean, with Renfro, just hopefully, just he can learn this system a lot better, or just something that can help him out, flex him out. Because I really want to see that third and Renfro like how we did last year, man.
Mm.
That dude was literally a tape like you had to see. That was must watch TV. Third and Renfro, man. I
Yeah,
want
he
him
was
to.
a different player
I
last
need
year.
him. I needed him to come back. That was literally Carr's bailout guy, dude. Literally, can't go without him, man.
Yeah, and like obviously, like what's special about Renfro is that he's the ultimate non-system kind of guy, which in a system
If
that's
Devontae wasn't here, it'd be him. The offense would be ran by him and Waller and
Just like it
Jacobs.
was last year.
Yep,
right,
yeah, exactly like last year.
right, and and obviously, I hate to say it, but with Zay Jones coming into his own, had we kept him, maybe a guy like him
Man,
as
we should
well,
have not let go to Zay Jones,
I
man.
know. And that's another disappointing thing too. I mean, so I would probably say my biggest bust is Josh McDaniels, just because this team, when you really think about it, it's a playoff team for sure. And that, um, but yeah,
I
I
think
digress.
with McDaniels, I think what he was seeing is that okay, maybe this team can be a playoff team, but it's just like there's a lot of holes, and if we
Right.
want to have a deep run in the playoffs, he wants to build it. So with the Devontae trade and everything that he did in the offseason, getting rid of Mullen, got rid of Leatherwood, got rid of a lot of players, build up a lot of draft cap, a lot of cap space, because he knew that eventually this day would come. And not to say that Carr was like already in the plan, like when they paid him, they didn't think Carr was gonna do this at all. Like they thought Carr, he's not like the quarterback that they had last year, like with Mac Jones and whatever. But they're getting a really good systematic quarterback that can really
Mhm.
adjust. It's just that I think in the time frame, and I think they're looking into the future. They think that maybe Carr isn't the future, and maybe they want to try to bring back Brady for one more year or something. Because these dudes, I'm pretty sure they're Brady munchers, dude. So they'll try to bring whoever.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's the thing. That's what I said, last week on one of our shows. That like, if McDaniel's really like doesn't believe in himself, like if this year was really the year where he's like, I really don't know what I'm doing, a guy like Brady could very well save him. Who
Dude,
like
yeah, exactly. And that's what. Sorry to cut you off, but I was gonna
no, go
say
ahead.
that. I think Dustin brought this up a while ago, where he's like, because Brady talked about the subject of Josh McDaniels going to the Raiders or something, and he was telling in the press conference that Derek Carr is gonna have to tell McDaniels this isn't the play I want. He did that last year, but I guess or this year, but I guess it didn't work as well. So like, I mean, like I guarantee you, Josh is gonna shut up for Brady for sure. And I
Right.
think like that's gonna be like one of the huge things is that like even with Derek, like I mean like just overall, dude, like he's like if Carr just needs to be more of a not to be a cancer in the locker room, but just somebody that can like tell him, hey, I want to run this play. This play doesn't look comfortable, and that's what he did in the Seattle game, right? He saw a play, he audible, and that's why Josh got that huge run to win. And so,
Right.
like, just more control of the offense is what we need to see more, and the quarterback especially.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what it comes down to. Like, you know, yeah, obviously Brady is going to have more of a command of the offense. He's going to be able to call audibles when he wants, or he's going to be able to say like, "No, fuck you, Josh. We're going to do this at this point in time." A lot of stuff, if we do end up getting Brady, a lot of stuff is going to be done to make him happy. So yeah, and then obviously when you look at it that way, once again, if Brady, still has that magic left in him, then as hard as it is to see Carr go, then it might have well have been worth it. If we really can at least get deep in the playoffs, because that's the one thing. Throughout Carr's tenure, the question has become like, is getting to the wild card round and losing, is that as far as you can go with Carr? That's has it just been the team failing him, or is that just his ceiling? So that's really been the debate, and I think it's what's polarized this fan base for so many years now. But if they can go out and go deep in the playoffs, maybe even win a Super Bowl with Brady. But as I said, first of all, that would make up for the Tuck rule. I think we can all agree on that. It'd be hard to be mad at him for that after that. But
Brady gets us a Super Bowl. I mean, like, dude, fuck it. Who cares about the Tuck rule?
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, it'd be old news at that point. But yeah, I mean, and that really does seem to be the most realistic quarterback move.
I think like it would be the most realistic, and I think it would be the most favored move. Either that or Will Levis.
Right, and that's what I think, that like they could have both. They could draft Levis, and then because Brady's a free agent, they could just sign him, and then he could sit behind Brady.
He could
as
be a
well.
mentor too.
Right, that's what I'm saying, and also Stidham's value is he knows the playbook so well that he could teach it to Levis, and then Levis could be the ultimate McDaniels guy, and then that could be the McDaniels ticket to staying here long term. Is he has the quarterback who knows exactly what his coach wants to do, and he won't be at odds with him like Carr was apparently with McDaniels many times this season. So to me, it's the most realistic, but obviously they have a lot of options, and we'll see what transpires. What's up, Al's Ghost?
What's up, fellas? How you doing?
What's going on? What's going on? Thanks for joining again.
Yeah, no worries, dude. Always great talking Raiders with you guys.
Facts, man. Do you want to hop in on this topic at all? Or just talking about our biggest surprise and bust of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many to choose from. I think to touch on the bust, I've been really disappointed, specifically on the defensive side of the ball with two players, actually three, but the third one not so much, and I'll explain why in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But I think after two pretty good rookie years, actually more than pretty good, I would say good rookie years from Merrick and Hobbs, I think they took two major steps back this season, unfortunately, and I expected them to take a step forward. But in my mind, they took two steps backwards under this scheme. I'm not sure if it's really them or the scheme. In my opinion, Nate Hobbs isn't an outside corner. Merrick can't play in a too high shell. And so for me, it's a big question mark as to whether or not those guys are going to be answers for us in the future. Maybe Hobbs is more salvageable because he could play in the nickel, but I'm not sure about Merrick. So for me, those guys were big busts this year, and they played very, very poorly. The third guy on defense was Chandler Jones. I think towards the end of the season, he started playing a little bit better, but he definitely did not live up to, the 17 million or so that he was going to be getting paid per year. And so I thought he was a disappointing signing. So I would definitely add those guys as busts. And then, surprises, I guess. Frankly, I think I was pretty surprised that Carr ended up getting benched at the time that he did. I kind of saw it coming as the results weren't coming in as we kept on losing, and especially losing very, very close games, and he was having accuracy issues. But I think it was a bit surprising though, nonetheless, to have that happen, and to have our starting quarterback for the past 9 years, on the cusp of leaving the franchise. I think that's probably probably the most surprising development. I didn't expect it to go down like this, especially because going into the Niner game, we were still technically alive.
Right.
It's not. I mean, obviously it was a long shot, but I think we were still technically alive.
Yeah, we still were.
And so, actually, what's crazy, guys, and what makes this season even more disappointing is I'm pretty sure that 9 wins would have gotten us in. And if you think about all the close games that we lost, the second game of the season against the Cardinals, blowing that 20-point lead, losing against the Jaguars, coming out flat against the Titans, losing against Jeff Saturday, which I think was an all-time low there, and losing against the Rams, allowing Mayfield to march down the field 98 yards on a Thursday night game, losing against the Chiefs that Monday night game that we had in the bag. We were up 17 points. And then losing against the Steelers, like just so many winnable games. And if we could have pulled out 3 of those out of all those games that I mentioned, we would have been in the playoffs. And that's really, really disappointing.
1,000%, especially all the games that we've blown, like from Arizona, the 20-point lead against Arizona, to the 17-point lead against Kansas City, to the one against Jacksonville, and also there was a couple other games, I think.
Rams game.
Oh yeah, the Rams game, the Steelers game was a close game.
The Steelers were close, but we didn't blow a lead in that one.
We were up 10-3, dude. We were up 10-3.
Yeah, we were.
The Steelers game. Yeah.
And then there was another double digit. I think I was thinking about San Francisco, but that was a game.
Yeah, we were up there too.
By 10.
14 at one point.
Yeah. Was it?
Yeah, in my mind. Yeah, I was just gonna say, in my mind, there were like 3 games that we weren't really in at all. First and foremost, the Saints game, obviously. I thought the second Chiefs game that we had on Saturday was another one that we weren't really in. And I actually have to say that the first Chargers game, we weren't really in it. We made it close at the end, but we weren't really competitive for most of the games. So I'm actually like okay with those 3 losses. I mean, I hate losing more than I love winning, but I think those 3 losses were well deserved.
Yeah.
And outside of those games, we were leading or in it like through and through. So I think that Titans game was also problematic because we started off really flat and we actually dug ourselves in a pretty deep hole. I think we were down by double digits at some point, but then we came back towards the end of the game, and then we had a chance there to actually tie or win. If I forget exactly, but we had the ball at the end, and then Carr couldn't connect with the receivers in the end zone. So yeah, I mean, pretty crappy season overall, guys. I mean, really disappointing, and I don't know how much confidence you guys have in this regime. I don't have much, but
yeah, me neither.
It's the same old story, dude. It's the same old story.
Yeah, it's I mean, yeah, as I said before, I mean, obviously what it comes down to is, Mark Davis has placed a lot of faith, at least for now, in not only McDaniels but this regime overall, and because he's taking a leap of faith, we're taking a leap of faith, and I mean, I hate to say it, but the worst case scenario is it doesn't work, and because we've been so used to sucking for 2 decades now, it's just going to continue, which we're used to anyway. It's just more disappointing because they moved to a whole new market. There's supposed to be a huge bonanza and a great opportunity for this franchise. To me, it felt like they were turning the page on what was a really bad ending to their time in Oakland overall. And not only that, but they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on contracts just in last offseason alone.
Yeah.
So that would make it more disappointing than if there were no real expectations. Like if they were still in Oakland and they were didn't really have any promising players or anything like that. But I think it's really the disappointment relative to especially all the hype we had in this offseason. But I mean, to me, yeah, as far as my personal standards and me having faith in this regime or not, I think this is really like the year. Like if it doesn't happen this year, I really don't know if it's meant to be. But like everything else, we're taking leap of faith, and we'll have to see. Thanks for joining, by the way, AJ. How you been?
Man, I've been doing all right. I had some issues with connecting to my normal computer over here, so I'm using a laptop. But I just finished working on a design, so expect that in like the next coming week. So just got some things done so far.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I think we're Hold on. Let me get rid of the banner real quick. Yeah, because I think was your Instagram name. Yeah. So yeah. So make sure to follow our friend AJ. That's his Instagram handle right there. That's his label on his window right there. Give him a follow. He makes great designs. He's very talented. Also great to have him on the panel as always. By the way, while we have you here, did you want to give your biggest surprise player and biggest bust or disappointment player of the
I would
season?
honestly say biggest surprise player I would think would be Mac Hollins because he was the guy that came. He somewhat came out of nowhere. He didn't have like that much happening like in Miami, so it was like when we got him, we were thinking like, oh, okay, wide receiver 3, you know. So we were thinking like wide receiver, like who would be the wide receiver 3 between like him and Keelan Cole because Adams Renfro that was already set. But then he came in here and when Renfro got hurt, he stepped up and had a career year. Honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, then that was Ray's pick as well. It's probably I agree with him a lot too on it. That he in just so many different ways. He laid it all out on the line, left it all out on the field. For this team, and he did way more than I think anyone really expected out of him. And to me, his biggest impact really was on special teams. It really seemed like he and AJ Cole were the 1-2 punch because obviously Cole can get it down there. He can pinpoint pretty much any punt to within the 10-yard line. But, if you don't have a guy going down there like they didn't have before, because last year was arguably AJ Cole's best year of his career. But if you don't have a guy running downfield like a gunner who can pin the ball deep, then the punt the net or ultimate punt yardage isn't going to look as nice, and the field position isn't going to be as good for the defense. So to have a guy like that who on multiple occasions this year pin the other team down within their 5 or 10 yard line, that was huge. And then when you throw in other things like his contributions as a wide receiver, I mean he probably had his best year as a wide receiver this year as well. So, and then on top of that, outside of the gridiron, so to speak, outside of the lines of the game itself, it just seemed like he was a great locker room guy, like just a happy-go-lucky guy who reminded everyone to not take everything so seriously. Which is you need a guy like that. You need a guy who just kind of just goofy. Reminds everyone this is a game, and at the end of the day, we're playing a game. We're supposed to have fun, and that's how you play at your best. You remember that it's a game like anything else, and you're just trying to do the best you can while also getting enjoyment out of it.
Yep.
What's up, did you, AJ? Do you have like any like biggest disappointment or disappointing player of the year as well?
I'd say maybe I know I have one. I would say my first one would definitely be Chandler Jones, and I would say because like we didn't expect him as much, but he did some good for us. Like obviously he had Sin City Miracle against New England, but other than that, he didn't really do much like that. And then that 3-sack half against the Chargers, those were like the main 2 things that he had like major. But I would say my second one, I'd say Derek Carr. If I'm being honest, he didn't have a bad year like touchdown wise, like yardage wise, he didn't play bad. But crucial turnovers, like red zone turnovers and things like that, definitely cost this team in big games. Like I'd say that LA game was one. The Rams game where he just threw it up and we threw it up and it just wobbled. That was one.
Mm-hmm.
And one that really wasn't his fault was against Tennessee when it went off Waller's hands and he just ducked.
Right. Yeah.
Those are good points. No, I was just gonna say those are good points, dude. I was actually gonna go back to my earlier response and kind of revise it a little bit in terms of my biggest surprise.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have to be honest, guys. My biggest surprise was actually Josh Jacobs.
Yeah,
Going into the year, I would not have thought that Josh Jacobs would win the rushing title.
Yeah.
I always thought of Josh Jacobs as a really, really good running back and like a surefire 1,000-yard rusher.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think that this season he really stepped up his game and became like literally like one of the top 3 running backs in the league. And before this season, I didn't consider Josh Jacobs as a top 3, top 2 running back. And now I think it's undisputed that he is amongst the very, very elite running backs in the league. And for me, it was surprising. I think it surprised Ziegler and McDaniels as well, guys, because if you remember, they were playing Josh Jacobs way into the preseason, even in the Hall of Fame game.
Yeah.
So to me, that signaled that they were showcasing him for a trade.
Yeah.
And no one, no other team bid on him. Like actually wanted that trade. So, or I'm sure teams like made some offers, but I'm sure that they were probably like 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks, and Ziegler wasn't giving them up for that. So I was just like overall very, very pleasantly surprised with Josh Jacobs, and hopefully he's here for the long term. But it kind of seems up in the air, guys. Like his responses have been kind of iffy in my, just based on the interviews that I've watched.
Yeah.
True.
Well,
that is true.
Yeah, I mean, apparently, like every report that I've seen from multiple different sources, that it's likely that they're going to retain him, which is good news.
Yeah.
Obviously, nothing's guaranteed, but I think in the moment, I mean, obviously, it's very bad optics, or it's very bad to see the quotes that Josh has made in response to these crushing losses, especially towards the end of the season. But I mean, at the same time, you could also look at it in the context of like, he's just pissed off at the result and he's tired of the losing.
Yeah.
So, and you're shoving a microphone in the guy's face. What do you expect him to say? Like he loves where they're at right now. He's bought into the tank. Yeah, it's really tough to feel good about a loss. Even if it's as this coaching staff is probably trying to sell us on, even though it's good for the long term. So, I don't necessarily believe that just because of his post-game reactions and whatnot that it's indication of his leaving. But and I think if they give him the bag, then he's definitely likely to stay. But obviously, I think he is getting sort of like anxious or impatient, if you will, as far as the lack of success. But yeah, I mean, obviously, his year this year cannot be questioned. I mean, Noah and I were talking about it earlier in the show or before the show. If he's not first team All Pro, the media, the Associated Press is just
a bunch of clowns.
Yeah,
exactly.
Clowns paid off.
Right. Yeah, a bunch of paid off clowns by Goodell probably. Some of nature, but I digress. But yeah, I mean, obviously, had some really good surprises in a lot of ways. Had a lot of bright spots on this team. Had a lot of disappointing players as well. But overall, they just weren't able to complete it into one overall unit that was able to win more games than they lost.
But Jeff.
Yeah. Who's calling me?
Yeah, what's up? To add on real quickly to the topic earlier,
yeah,
I'm gonna just rally off a couple names that I thought were surprising in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that one was Amik Roberson. Honestly, he got hot in the late stretch of the year. I'd say another would be Deron Harmon. I would say one more. I would say even though he got injured, my guy Divine Diablo was one. he was leading the team in tackles at a point and was
No, we just need a whole new linebacking core. Everybody
a
replace
new
Three Cortez.
Bro,
Herman.
it's Three
Everybody.
Stooges. Hey, what's up? I'm Three Stooges.
Keep going, AJ. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. But I feel like even though a bright spot, even though he was injured for majority of the year, I feel Devon Diablo was one. And I also think that even with the sacks, I feel Dylan Parham's one too, because with our line being as bad as it was last year, and being able to slot him in year one and having him fit the mold somewhat, not being so costly in the penalty area. I feel like that was a smart pickup. I felt like that was one of the bright spots that we could build on going into next year.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like I said, obviously, as we said earlier, like Meek Robinson, definitely a guy I think worth keeping as a depth piece. Number one corner just because of his height. I don't know if that's the right way to go, but especially in maybe a slot, in the slot, or nickel corner kind of a look.
Hey,
Definitely could benefit. Sorry, did you want to say some more, AJ, or is that?
Oh no, that's all I have.
All right.
No, did you want to say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, go
Before
for
we
it.
move on, there
Yeah.
was another defensive player that came to mind as you guys were
Mhm.
talking about, Meek and Nate Hobbs. Tyler Hall, the guy we signed
Oh yeah,
mid-season just
definitely.
before this, just right.
yeah. He deserves
He's
to be
been
the
one
slot.
of the
Yup.
he's been
Play
one
the
of these
slot.
best slot corners, I think, in the league since we picked him up before the Seattle game, and he's been probably the best defensive weapon we've had since we've signed him. He's got, I think, multiple pass breakups. I think he's got 4 or 5 in the 6 or 7 games he's played with us.
I know he
He
had a
does.
pick against Denver because that was when I first heard of him.
Does he have a pick against Denver? I know he got a sack against them. I don't
He
think he
got
had
a
an
sack
interception.
against Russell Wilson
Yeah.
in the Denver game.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
he had a
sack.
sack.
I
It
thought
wasn't
he
a
had a pick too, but I'm gonna check real quick.
No, there wasn't a.
I think he did have an interception in one of these games.
I don't think he did.
I'm looking at his stats right now. Yeah, he had no interceptions.
Hey,
But
my quarterback that I want to draft is the one from Georgia. That guy could play.
Stetson Bennett?
Oh yeah, congratulations to Georgia for the biggest blowout in college football
Hey,
history.
back-to-back champs too. Not
65-7.
Man, I was watching it. It was like 50 something.
Bennett. I want Bennett to be our quarterback.
Bennett?
Yeah, from Georgia.
Yeah, fuck it. If we're gonna just try and pick somebody up, might as well be him. Just kidding.
Yeah.
But he's if some team gives him a chance in the later rounds, like some team would give Hendon Hooker a chance, I think that he'll be a really good backup, maybe even a good tiny key type player.
Freaking what's his name was balling out too. The tackle, what's his name? Carter?
Yeah, Jalen
Oh,
Carter.
Jalen Carter? Yeah, he played really good.
He's a beast.
I don't like Ringo.
Kelly Ringo?
No, hell no.
He was kind of a liability on that one big play where it was like, you guys remember that big play where it's like they're both lined up and they cut?
My favorite player is going to be a later round. I think he plays for Northwestern. He's 6'4" corner. 6'4" corner. Tyreek Woolen. Fuck, I forget. Bethel, I think. Julian something. Bethel, I think. Is his name?
I think it was Julie. No, I'm thinking about it.
Or from Kansas. I think he's from Kansas.
I don't know what I thought of Antoine Bethea, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That guy's 6'4", man. Hey, the thing that they need to do with the Meek Robinson, move him to safety. Don't put him back in. You've seen what happened?
I mean, I guess if you want, you can have him as an outside corner as a
no,
heck
no. He's too small. He's too small. No.
We saw how we did against Kansas City. I guess you could say one time. That's all I'm gonna say.
That one time, and then he was cool for the rest of the game.
But we need actually starters.
Yeah, I feel like our biggest, our two biggest in the free agency and offseason, the draft. I feel like cornerback and offensive line, especially that right tackle spot. I do not like.
If Brady comes, that's what they're gonna do. But I could see Aaron Rodgers coming here.
Man, we're gonna.
Because Rodgers is not going to go back to Green Bay. He's not going back to Green Bay. He's not going to go back.
It's only the second year of his deal, though. That $200 million
But
deal.
if you've seen him, how he went off the field and what J-Mo asked him for his jersey. And he said, no, I'm going to keep this one. He said, but you told me that you would. See, there's some theories behind it, too.
And he also, like, Rodgers, like, in the post-game, like, press conference, literally, like, said, there's no guarantee that I'm going to be back next year. Like, I'm going to have to, like, he said the same thing, like, a couple years ago, too, where he's like, I'm going to have to, like, see how, you know.
Hey, right now, I would give them Derek Carr. I would do a swap. Just give them him and then give him, like, a second or a third.
Guys.
It be that simple.
I don't think so.
Guys, by the way, salute Cortez.
What's good?
It's good, brother. No, so like I actually would go ahead and argue probably in the history of quarterbacks in the NFL that Aaron Rodgers is the most underachieving quarterback in the history of the NFL. Check this out, guys. He's a 4-time MVP, undisputed, like one of the greatest quarterbacks, right, of all time. He has one Super Bowl to show for it.
Yeah.
That's wild.
You could say the same thing about Peyton Manning before he got that defense to carry him. I mean, there's the same
argument there. True, yeah.
Hey, we're gonna go straight defense. I think we could get Payne. We could get Tremaine Edmonds. That's my linebacker.
Yeah, Tremaine Edmonds.
Because Buffalo's not gonna be able. They rather keep Milano than Edmonds. And Edmonds is a good linebacker.
And they got to pay Roger Saffold this offseason as well.
No, not. And they got to go pay what's his name? Poyer, the safety too.
Jordan Poyer. Yeah, I would actually get Poyer instead of.
No, they are not gonna let go of Poyer. They're gonna pay him. They're gonna pay him big bucks.
I forgot his name. I think he's on Green Bay. Not Amos, but what is it?
Savage.
Maybe I think one of the
Savage. I think his name.
Agent, one of the Packers corner. I mean, the Packers safeties. I think whatever.
Hey, let's
guys,
talk
we
about
need two safeties, guys. We need two safeties.
What about Merrick?
I don't think Merrick is not.
Merrick is trash.
Merrick is not the answer in this scheme, dude.
No.
He can't play too high.
Yeah, with the scheme, I don't know.
Look what he was getting. You cannot put him on tight ends. There's no way. Because he gets burned. They get over on him.
He can't tackle either.
Yeah, nah. And then this whole year, I didn't see them really wrap up and like try.
They never did. They missed a lot of tackles, but I feel
you know what I saw, guys. Actually, like about that regarding the lack of tackling, I saw like a lot of these folks, a lot of our players trying to strip the ball or punch the ball out. Yeah. It seems like the coaches were telling them, "Hey, don't worry about the tackling, or just emphasize punching the ball out.
Don't worry about the fundamentals of the game."
Don't worry about the fundamentals of the game.
Coaching change too.
I feel like probably.
I don't know if you guys heard.
Like Patrick Graham.
No, it's not going to be Graham. Somebody, I forget the name or what they call him. Well, I think it may be the special teams coordinator getting a head coaching job in college or somewhere in high school or somewhere. Mm. Because they asked Josh McDaniels that this morning or earlier today, and he didn't really speak. He's like, "Oh, we got to evaluate the coaches and all this, but there's one that's going to be leaving for the Cernos or some, I don't know."
But honestly, back to the draft real quick. I feel that there are some good linebackers in the draft. I feel like
Sanders or what's his name. I do not like Arkansas's linebacker.
What?
I do not like him. Drew Sanders or something. Sanders.
Oh yeah, I think he was one of the.
I don't like him.
Oh right, yeah, that's a good one.
I don't like him. I do not like him.
But I feel like, if I'm being honest, I need to check my draft board. But I know Jack Campbell out of Iowa's a good one.
Yeah,
in the bowl game, I'd say he'd be a very good third or fourth round pick for us. But there's another one. I need to check my mocks. But
so AJ, I got this question. It's one of my questions since last week. Jeff knows what I'm gonna say. what's the one position on defense that you would want to focus on in free agency?
I'd
One
focus on
position.
probably, I would say there's a lot of positions that we need to worry about on the defensive end, but I'd say probably going out and getting like
I
maybe
want Payne.
linebacker. I would say maybe
Not
a
tackle.
linebacker.
Payne could get 12 sacks. Just
Oh
imagine
yeah,
having
Deron
Payne.
Payne. Yeah.
12 sacks. I would give him money. I would just throw out money to him.
I would say Deron Payne definitely we could get him to try to bolster the front seven. And then maybe if he falls, hopefully Jalen Carter. I don't think so. I don't think he's
No,
falling
Carter's
seven,
not enough fall.
but if we could get him, that would be nice. But I don't see him falling down all the way to 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good. So why don't we just go around the panel and just no, you want to go to the biggest positional need that you think we need, or the one big
Corner.
defense?
I don't
Corner?
even have to really say it. I think it's corner, or
No.
you go with a nose tackle if you're gonna run a 3-400 gram again, because this didn't really work out last year when you're trying to create a pass rush. In the run game, it worked fine because you had guys, not I guess. Wait, is it Andrew Billings I'm thinking of? I think it's Andrew Billings. That was a
Yeah,
run
like
game that did work.
you had like Pecco up there. You had I forgot guy from Chicago.
Yeah.
I forgot his name though.
Right.
Yeah, Bilal Nichols.
Right, but you're running a 3-4 scheme again, or a primary 3-4-7
We don't
front.
got
So
Rudy. We don't have time to be patient with Morig.
right. So, if you're gonna have that, that means you're gonna be running like 4 or 5, secondary players or players in the secondary every single time. So, either go nose tackle DT, or you pick a cornerback that can play on the outside. And I think right now, I've heard good things about Christian Gonzalez. So if he's there and we have all the good players off the board already, and when I say good players, I mean like guys like Levis, Stroud, Murphy, Anderson, Carter. If they're all off the board, I'm okay with picking a cornerback.
Yeah, I would say I'm iffy on Ringo.
Hey, my corner.
Probably Joey Porter.
No,
maybe Joey Porter.
Cam Smith. Cam Smith's a dog.
He's like I heard some good things about him, but I feel I don't know at 7. I'm not sure.
No, trade back with Houston.
See if he's
trade with Houston for the 12th pick and get like extra picks, like whatever.
Yeah, so like they could probably trade up or trading up.
Jeff, you want to do a mock draft?
Receiver needy team, like I'd say you could trade up with Houston because they do need a receiver. So if one of those like
how does Bill Bellis? Nah, Bill does not.
I mean, at this point in his career, Bill's pretty old.
Bill won how many chips? 6?
Yeah, 6.
Yeah, see?
Well, I think he has one more, but I forgot.
Yeah,
I think it's only 6.
So he definitely has a lot in the ring department.
Yeah.
Al's Ghost, what about you? What's the one big position on defense that you think needs improvement or that we should prioritize above all else? Al's Ghost, you there? No Kmart version. Okay. So why don't we
mine's linebacker. I want Edmonds.
Yeah,
just imagine him. Yeah. He could cover. Get rid of Denzel and put him at middle.
I'd say probably get rid of Jayon Brown, honestly, because Perriman's a tackling machine.
I would let go. I would move.
And he could rush off the edge. So
I would move Divine Diablo back to safety. I would put Divine back at safety.
What for, like his tackling ability? Because I know he used to play safety at
Illinois. No, West Virginia.
West Virginia. Yeah, so I'm not sure about putting him back at safety. That maybe could work, but I'm not sure. But he would definitely be good at safety too.
Yeah, man, I don't know. Use a Hey, did you guys see Abrams? Because now They're in the playoffs. Trayvon Mullins gonna play in the playoffs, starting at
Artie
corner.
G in the playoffs, man.
Hankins is starting. He's a
Oh yeah,
starter
he's a Cowboy.
with the Cowboys. Them
Zay
two
Jones.
played with the Cowboys.
Oh yeah, Zay Jones with the Jaguars.
Yep. I'm pulling for the Jags this week. Chargers are stupid. Their coach is gonna get canned for what he did.
Actually, no, we don't want that to happen. We don't have to.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want a vacancy in our division.
Hey guys, you guys wanna know why it's pretty obvious to me that this regime wasn't willing to win this year? Check this out. So remember Jonathan Abram, obviously he was on our team, and he was a starter for
But there was something
the
else
season.
behind the scenes.
Check this out, Cortez. So like he was a starter on our team right up until the trade deadline. And then after the trade deadline, because we were obviously showcasing him for a trade, we ended up cutting him when we didn't get a suitor to basically partner with us in a trade. So what does that tell you? That tells me that this guy was actually not good enough to be on your roster for whatever reason, scheme, personality type, whatever.
Right.
But you were still putting him out there not to win, but in order to effectuate a trade. You know what I'm saying? Because once the trade deadline ended or hit, that's when you ended up cutting the guy. And so that told me from the beginning, whoa, like this guy, like this regime wasn't really wanting to win this year. They signed Davante Adams and they signed Chandler Jones, but then you step back and you think about how like they didn't address the offensive line.
Yeah,
how they were shuffling the offensive line throughout the year, and I think at last count, Dustin said that they shuffled it like 21 times. So 21 different offensive line combinations. So this whole year was just a testing ground for them for like a bunch of things that they wanted to try out. They didn't want to win
draft either. Al.
Yeah, but why? But why is it that they didn't have a full draft? Because they traded for Davante, right? Like these are decisions that they made.
Too, like this whole team was not their team.
Yeah, but
they didn't have enough time that they're gonna have this offseason.
But check this out, guys. So from my perspective, let me first preface what I'm going to say by stating that Davante, he's a top 3 wide receiver, probably the top receiver in the NFL. He's going to be a future Hall of Famer. He broke Tim Brown's franchise record, et cetera, et cetera. But if these guys meaning Ziegler and McDaniels, came into the Raiders wanting to rebuild, trading that first and second round pick for Davante actually doesn't make sense because you ended up trading 2 high draft assets and you ended up having to lock up a bunch of money for Davante. So you have this one elite player, but you have all of these holes on the roster. So that's number one. Number two, if Ziegler and McDaniels weren't sold on Derek Carr as a starting quarterback, because I think it's obvious that they weren't, because that's the reason why they included that out at the end of this year, right? Like, hey, we could cut you with minimal dead money after this year. They actually should have traded Carr before the start of the season, because there were rumors that the Colts, for instance, were willing to give 2 first-round picks for the guy, and that's the highest draft stock that Derek Carr would have had in his entire career. So my whole point is this, guys, to summarize. If you're thinking of rebuilding a team, you rebuild through the draft, because if you want, I think the dog's agreeing with me. So if you want to rebuild a team and you want to build a sustainable winner, you rebuild through the draft, not through free agency.
Yeah.
And so what do you do in that instance? You don't sign super elite players like Davante Adams to a massive contract. You don't trade premium draft picks for an elite player like Davante Adams, which is also very unlike what the New England Patriots do. They never do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you don't keep a guy that you don't want when you have the opportunity to trade him, which is what they did with Derek Carr. So I think Ziegler and McDaniels did it all wrong, because now it's obvious, at least to me, it's clearly obvious they're gonna tear this whole thing down, guys. Like there may be. Don't be surprised if there's like 10, maybe 12 players from this year on next year's starting roster. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they literally only kept 10 to 12 players because that's what Gruden ended up doing when he tore it down back in 2018.
Yeah. I mean that is to the point where that's what we've been saying about like McDaniels has destroyed the locker room. Well, it's okay to destroy the locker room if this locker room isn't going to be here next year.
Exactly. Facts.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously it seems pretty clear when you look at who's been locked up or who was locked up going into the season versus who wasn't. I mean, obviously Chandler's going to stay unless he retires, but if not, he's going to stay. Max is here to stay, or at least another year out of Renfro.
Chandler most likely is going to retire.
Well, guys, let's actually count them off. So I think for special teams, we're set. We'll keep those three guys: AJ Cole, Trent Sieg, Daniel Carlson.
Big three.
On offense, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfro, Colton Miller.
Nah, Colton needs to go.
I think he'll still be there. I think Colton will be there.
Right, then.
Obviously, Dylan Parham will be there, and I think that's
Andre James is not.
So yeah, Andre James, I'm not sure. So for sure, let's say 8 guys, counting special teams and offense, right? 3 on special teams, 5 on offense. For sure that they'll keep. So that's 8. Then on defense, it's Max, Tyler Hall, and then who else, guys? Like Chandler Jones might retire. Billings, maybe. I think Billings played pretty well, so maybe that's 3.
And let's not forget, Bilal Nichols is on this will be his last year on that 2-year contract.
He didn't play that well in my eyes.
Yeah,
I think he's up.
He was very quiet.
Up in there.
Yeah, I think he's. I think he'll be exactly. He'll be a captain.
Hey, the one that I want back is Tillery.
I mean,
maybe
Jerry Tillery. I think he was brought in simply because we just needed that much help on the defensive line. And to be honest, what he did bring to the team in the short time that he was here wasn't what it's still not what you expect out of a first or like a former first-round pick. So I don't even know if he's still on this roster next year.
Yeah, guys. I mean, I think, if you just go up and down the roster, like I'm guessing maybe a dozen players. Rock Ya-Sin may get re-signed because the reason why I think he might get re-signed is they did the player-for-player trade with Yannick Ngakoue, right? And you don't do that kind of trade and then not sign the dude. So I think Rock is here.
We need a better.
Rock is a number 2 corner. He's not. He's not number 1
Nate
corner.
Hobbs is not a number 1. Nate Hobbs needs to go back to the slot.
Nate Hobbs is and who knows if this regime is actually sold on Nate Hobbs, guys? Like I'm actually not sure. So Foster Moreau is a free agent, so they might let him walk.
If Tom Brady comes, they're gonna fix the O-line.
Guys, Zamir White Harley played. I'm not even sure if he's on the roster. Britton Brown.
They're gonna keep McCormick.
Brandon Bolden may actually retire. He's like 33. Yeah. He's 32. Yeah. He's actually 33 in
to be honest, days. I could see Third and Renfro getting traded.
Yeah, no, I even see Waller probably getting traded.
Yeah,
I even
see what he doesn't fit the offense.
He doesn't fit any offense. That's the thing. He just does his own thing.
Yeah, he's just a route runner. He doesn't really have a scheme that he fits in really well or have a disadvantage in any scheme he fits in. He's just there to run routes in the slot, and he does well at that. So, that's the reason why you have him on the roster. And before we talk about trading Renfro, his $32 million extension kicks in this season because this was his final year of his rookie deal. I think 2022.
Right.
So I think you keep him this season, and if you suck at midseason, you can trade him at the deadline for a second-round pick or maybe even a first-round pick if he's outperforming expectations. And the other team gets half a year Renfro and then another year of Renfro with that salary cap that he's being paid. So I don't think you trade Renfro in the offseason. If you suck in the regular season again, you trade him with a deadline or you trade him in the following offseason. That's where I think you stand with Renfro.
Yeah, and with the success that McDaniels has had with guys in the slot like Edelman and Welker, I have to think that he's going to have some use for a slot guy. Because what is it? Name a better slot guy like outside of Tyler Boyd. I mean, in the slot, which is it's really its own like unique position. Who else in the league is going to offer you that? Underneath routes.
Well, you know what my whole thing is, dude, is with both Waller and Renfro, the best ability is availability, and those guys hardly play. They hardly play this year, and even Renfro last year, I think it was last year or the year before. If you guys remember, he had the broken ribs. I think he's just also just like body type. He's just prone to injury, and I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why this regime actually has him returning punts. It's really, really risky.
Yeah,
that is true. That is true.
He's
also not to say anything though. Let's give applause to Robert Gallery making the Hall of Fame college.
Oh yeah, true. I saw that in the pregame earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, I just want to make like Raider Nation aware, like this is gonna be a full blown teardown, and it's gonna get pretty nasty. And after next year, because it's really
I don't
really
think it's gonna be a teardown. I don't think so.
I think it is. Yeah, it's gonna be a teardown, dude.
Yeah. I think that's the best course of option for this team at this
point.
point.
You gotta burn it down and then build it the way that you want. But like next year may actually be worse record wise, guys, because we don't even know who our quarterback may be. And
quarterback's gonna be Rodgers.
Well, we don't know.
We don't even know that. Yeah.
We don't know if like this regime says, hey, you know what, we're sticking with Jared Stidham and Chase Garbers, and like that's the way that we're gonna go because we need to save money and address our other holes on offense and defense. So what I suspect is going to happen.
And guess who may be the new play caller this coming year?
It's probably still going to be McDaniels on the
offense. Yeah, McDaniels.
It's going to be the OC. He's going to finally.
I don't think so, dude.
No, yeah.
What's the real reason for McDaniels to give up control of the offense? There's no real reason for McDaniels to give control of the offense.
If you guys heard his presser, he said 1 to 2 years he'll give it to Lombardi.
Why did he say that?
Yeah, but McVay said the same thing about Kevin O'Connell, and then he just left. So it could just be Cap. I mean, maybe, but I don't see that happening.
That's the best option, to let him be calling the plays like he did in preseason.
That's such a bad look, though. Like if you do that as a head coach, like Nat Hackett literally gave up play calling duties, and he ended up getting fired. So like,
but that will help Josh McDaniels see both sides of the ball and be actual head coach.
But he's not like that. That's not his strong suit. Like being
let him try it. Like you guys just gotta give the guy time.
I mean,
maybe that's all he needs, but who knows?
We've been hearing that for how long now?
Like I said, he didn't really have everything that he could do. Like this year, he could actually evaluate everybody, see who he wants, see who he doesn't want.
But my whole thing.
And like to be honest with Ziegler's a cool dude. If you meet him in person, he's a cool dude.
He might be a cool dude, but like he's also a first time GM, and he was an extra on Law and Order. And I don't think he's done that great of a job, dude. I don't think he's done that great of a job.
Devontae?
Yeah, and also signing Chandler Jones to a ridiculous 3-year, $51 million contract.
They didn't know that stuff was going to happen like this.
A 31-year-old pass rusher, dude. Like that's ridiculous.
I think he did an amazing job.
I don't think he did. I think he did a mediocre job. I'm not going to say he did an awful job. I thought it was pretty mediocre. How is it that you go into the offseason without addressing the offensive line at all? How do you go into the season without addressing the line?
We had?
How do you go into the offseason without addressing the linebacker position? Dude, at some point, Sam Webb, a cornerback, was playing linebacker because we didn't have enough. Because we didn't have enough linebackers. That's on the personnel department. Like you got to make sure you have enough people to play.
Patrick Graham is not going cars out of here.
Yeah,
and next year they'll prove that.
Dude, you know what the excuse is going to be next year? And I don't want to be a pessimist, guys, because I'm actually a very positive person in my real life. But like, what's going to happen next year is this: we're going to draft because we have like 12 or so draft picks, and when we do,
13. We
13,
may be getting more.
Yeah.
Isn't it 11 right now?
Check.
Huh?
I thought
check
I
this.
counted 11. Sorry, go ahead, Alcos.
No,
I was just gonna say. So Cortez, check this out. So let's say we have 12, might be 11 picks, and let's say we use all those picks in this year's draft. The excuse next year, if we have the same record or slightly better or slightly worse, let's say we don't make the playoffs, the excuse is going to be, well, we drafted a bunch of young players that had to learn how to play. I've seen this movie before, guys. Like I've seen this kind of stuff before. And if you saw, guys, I'm not sure if you saw Dave Ziegler's recent interview on Raiders.com. It's on the Raiders YouTube channel. And they asked them about like, hey, what's success going to look like for next year? And he didn't commit to anything, which I guess is smart because he doesn't want to tie himself to anything.
Yeah, he doesn't want to tell nobody what they want to do because it's going to be the off season. So you keep it hush hush.
Dude, but like, it's obvious that he knows that they're going to tear this down and it may get uglier before it gets better. I think it actually gets worse because you're going to be cutting a bunch of people and you're basically formulating a whole new team. The leader of that entire team, I mean, we could say whatever we want about his quarterback play. I was actually a Derek Carr supporter, but I still think that he played. I think he played below his ability, guys.
Yeah,
but
bro,
the leader of the locker room is gone. Like a lot of these dudes who were there
Devontae could take over the locker.
Alec Ingold was gone. Like there's a lot of people who were part of that Gruden Bisaccia era who are gone, right?
But let me ask you this: what did Rich Bisaccia couldn't do X's and O's? Who would have been his OC then? I didn't want Greg Olsen. I didn't want to keep Gus Bradley.
So my response to that is actually like real simple, dude. For the head coach, which is something that I've been arguing on some other lives, is for the head coach, you don't need a guy who's X's and O's. You don't need a guy who knows offense or defense.
You need a guy to troops.
You need a guy to lead. You need a guy to lead.
If he doesn't know that type of
that's literally the definitions of a head coach. You have coordinators for a reason to help,
and
get
position
the
coaches.
Exactly. The head coach is to keep everybody together, keep everyone collected, keep everyone focused.
He's not a head
that is
coach.
the reason.
That's why he never got another opportunity to be a head coach.
We interviewed Bisaccia last offseason.
Yeah,
because his team rallied around him.
That was
Cortez, did you listen to KJ Wright's interview on that recent podcast, like from a couple of weeks ago? He said that they should have kept Rich Bisaccia.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, like you should look it up. I forget the exact podcast that he was on.
I seen him once. I seen him actually a couple weeks when I was up in Seattle. I got to see him go give his ex-teammates hugs when they were playing the Seahawks.
Yeah, so KJ Wright was on our team last year, remember? And he was on a podcast like 2 weeks ago, and he said, yeah, the Raiders – he said actually like almost quoting him verbatim, he said, I don't know what Mark Davis was thinking. He should have kept Rich Bisaccia. All of us loved him. So like imagine this, guys. Imagine this. Noah, Three Stooges, Cortez, IG, Josh McDaniels. Like all of us are like coworkers, right, for a company. Mm-hmm. And we're all working, let's say at Whole Foods, a grocery store. And we're all managed by the same boss, right? But the boss that we have is awesome.
Rudy, it was time to move on from Carr. I don't care if you say that we're going back. It's just time to move on.
No, I'm talking about Bisaccia. So like,
I'm talking to Rudy in the chat. It was time to move on. Like,
let Alcos finish.
Yeah. So this is the quick analogy that I was making. So let's say we're all coworkers, work at the same company, and we're managed by, let's say, John Doe. That's our manager. But he's an awesome manager. He treats us well, treats us with respect, gives us credit when credit's due, keeps us accountable, et cetera, et cetera. We all love the guy. But upper management, corporate headquarters says, nah, we're going to fire this dude. Even though the company did really well, we exceeded profits.
Right.
Our customers are happy. And all of a sudden, a new guy comes in. How would that make us feel, dude? Like they literally took the boss. They beheaded the boss that we loved. That's what's happening with the Raiders right now.
It's the micromanagement from the people up above. There's a reason you have like regional managers, and to connect to your scenario, when you have regional managers in these supermarkets and these fast food chains and coffee shops and stuff like that, it's to keep everyone focused because the people up above making the 6-digit salaries, they don't really care because they're focused on the big picture. So you have other guys that come in to help focus on the day-to-day stuff. That's what you have in a manager, and that's what you need in a coach. That's not the owner's responsibility. That's what Mark Davis is meddling too much with this Raiders.
Mark Davis ain't really the owner, though.
What do you mean? He's the owner. He's the sole owner of the team.
No,
whether
his
we like
mother
it or not.
is the owner. His mother owns the team.
It's the Davis family. It's the Davis family, dude. Yeah, it's the Davis family.
If you go on the wiki, it's either.
But it's
Carroll
gonna be like that because Carroll's the main. What's gonna happen when Carroll dies? Davis
go to Mark.
Mark cannot do it because taxes. So that's why he leans on his mom for the tax purposes of the team.
What do you mean? His mom doesn't get taxed?
No, she's the one that's in charge.
What do you mean? Everyone gets taxed.
Mark Davis will not be able to keep the team.
Well, in that case,
I disagree,
we'll
dude. I don't think that's true.
I think in that case, we'll sell it to a team that actually doesn't really, an owner that actually cares about the team but doesn't want to have to.
He's not just the only owner. There's multiple owners. The casinos in Vegas, but they have majority of the shares.
I'm not sure the casinos, like the casino owners in Vegas, own the team. I think. Are you confusing that with the stadium management?
No. There's the guy that helped get them the stadium. He passed away. His wife runs it now. Yeah. Mark Davis sucks.
Right. That's kind of the end all point is that Davis kind of effed this up because he went out and he fired Bisaccia. He got his hands dirty when he didn't need to have them dirtied. That's kind of the point of all of this. Because the players love Bisaccia and Mayock,
for
didn't
Tom
really have
Brady.
a chance.
Let's go. If Tom Brady comes here and brings us a chip.
Well, then he does that, and then we're all happy in the end. But right now, we're looking at things that couldn't,
Yeah, and the other thing that could happen, Noah, and I've been saying this on some other lives is, believe me, I've been following sports for a while, guys. The one thing that holds true across every sport, Father Time is undefeated. Mm-hmm. Tom Brady could go ahead and sign with us in the offseason and everything could look fine and dandy, but Father Time creeps up on you, and it creeps up on you quick, and you never know when when these perfect spirals start fluttering in the air. That's what happened to Peyton Manning a few years ago. Well, 7 years ago when he had that Super Bowl run with the Broncos.
All right, see you later, then, Cortez.
See you later, Cortez. When Peyton Manning had that Super Bowl run with the Broncos, which he won based on the Broncos defense, not based on his quarterback play, like Father Time just creeped up on him super quick. And I just can't trust that guy. I mean, what is it? Brady's going to be 46, 47, something like that?
Yeah.
That's way up there in age, guys. That's way up
There's
there
really
in age.
no incentive for Brady to play anymore, too. I mean, we know the divorce situation with his wife and stuff, but if he's still, his kids are still around, so there's still reason for him to be a father. And this, like you said, Father Time's going to keep on quickly. There's no reason for him to have the incentives to still play well. I mean, he reached his goal after all. He won't play it. He wanted to play it till he's 45. He said this years ago in 2014 when he was with the Patriots. He's done that. He's completed this goal. There's no reason that he needs to keep, training like an NFL athlete rather than just train like a father would. Just not an intense workout. No reason to keep like a film sessions 40, 30, 20 hours a week with the coaches and stuff like that to help game plan. There's no reason for him to be committing to all that. I mean, he took a break with the Buccaneers this offseason to go to the Bahamas with his family. There's lots of, there's lots of other,
right.
There's details that I can't think of another word right now. My brain's fried, but.
Yeah, he has other interests in life besides football now.
Exactly.
And so, especially at this age, he could be interested in other things besides besides football. Like
what, like FTX?
Yeah, like something like that, dude. Who knows? But yeah, dude, there's just I don't want Brady here for a variety of reasons, but I primarily it's actually because of the history that he has with the Raiders and the whole Tuck rule. But secondarily, I'm also not happy with just the fact that he's up there in age, and I'm not trying to be ageist here or anything like that, but I mean, I'm looking at his age right now. He's gonna be 46 in August, so by the start of next year, he's 46. It's just it's up there in age. It's just really really old.
And I want to think about like this. You have, he as a quarterback, you throw the ball a lot, and obviously in a season you don't really throw the ball as often as, let's say, an MLB pitcher would. But how often do you see an MLB player go into their mid to late 40s throwing a baseball? And usually it's pitchers because you're not as physical on the pitch, so you have that to think of as well. And that's kind of the same scenario as Brady, especially because you're the quarterback. You mainly throw the ball. That's all you can really do besides call the plays. And in essence, it's the same role as the pitcher almost. Obviously, you have more contact as a quarterback. No one's going to deny that. And with that, there's also that reality that you're going to be hit more often than you would with a baseball flying back at you. So there's a higher chance for injury in your body to not be able to recover as well from an injury of, let's say, for example, like a sprained ankle, or to say the worst in his age. It's going to take a while, and it might not be the same.
Yeah, I agree, dude.
I mean, obviously the age is a factor here. The one thing that I don't think people are really factoring into the equation here is that it's possible that this 1 year, Brady was held back by Todd Bowles, because I don't think a lot of people have this perspective, but living in the New York media like I do, and having watched Todd Bowles be the head coach of the New York Jets, he's definitely a brilliant D coordinator, but as a head coach, because he was head coach of the Jets, just in terms of wins and losses, he completely, completely swung and missed. He's not a head coach. He's doesn't have that DNA in him. So
he's much too controlling and like all over the place, like more control type than just organized to be an effective head coach, to the point where he restricts his players rather than letting them, play the way they should. I know what you mean.
Yeah, right. So what I'm saying is that it's possible that he was Brady, because this is his first year with Todd Bowles as head coach. He was just completely held back, and not only just him, but the entire offense in general. He wasn't able to really do what he wanted to do, and so in general, that could be responsible for the disappointing season that the Bucs have had. So, given that, it's possible that if Brady were to go to another system, i.e., this team, the Las Vegas Raiders, where he would have more freedom, there would be more of obviously an emphasis on offense, with McDaniels there, who obviously has built up, probably the best relationship with Brady than any other coordinator has in his career. You know, I think that in theory that would, that could mean that it would be worth it to get a guy like Brady, even if it's just for like 1, 2, outside 3 years. Try to really make a run at a Super Bowl. So, because with the win now status of a lot of these players, with the way in which they're locked up and they're in the primes of their career, or they're sort of getting older, as you point out, Al's Ghost, about a guy like Chandler Jones. I mean, what's a better win now option? I mean, Devontae is probably going to get even more pissed off than he has been this year if they only go with a guy like Will Levis, and he has to make his rookie mistakes, and because of that, they only have another 5-6 win season maybe, and they just have to wait till a guy like that matures, and that's assuming that he really is up to snuff, as far as being an NFL quarterback. So I don't know. I mean, do you have any ideas, Noah, as far as what a better win now option at quarterback would be than Brady?
When Cortez wasn't here, he was suggesting Rodgers, and we know nothing's official yet, and we don't really know if he has any interest in being in the Raiders. We do know that, remember when the Moss debacle was happening, that supposedly Green Bay had a deal in place with us to send Rodgers to the Raiders in exchange for Moss, so he could be with Favre in final season. So, there's history there. But as for teams I think Rodgers would want to play for, I'm pretty sure Vegas would probably be on the lower end of the spectrum, considering he's been a fan of the Niners his whole life. You got to remember that as well. So, I think that if you're going to go with a veteran option, as much as I hate it, Brady's probably the best option you have there, considering his familiarity with the scheme and, his availability and reasonability to be, vocal with McDaniels. But yeah, I think if you're going to go with a fuck it all option and, fuck logic, Rodgers is probably your choice. But the realistic option for a veteran QB here would be Brady. Personally, I like to see a younger QB in the draft, like CJ Stroud maybe. But, I'd rather have a defense built first before we try to commit to a QB, because that's how all NFL teams are kind of being built nowadays. Get the QB last, so you have to pay them less because QB's paid more than any position in the league.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's like I said, there's a bunch of different ways the team could approach this. I mean, and it's not impossible that they get Brady and they draft a quarterback. I mean, I would agree that and I just looked it up. They have 11 picks in this upcoming draft, so they have a lot to work with. That's a lot more than a lot of other teams.
And then you're gonna have to. Sorry to cut you off, but they're gonna have more picks because of Carr and then the compensatory picks from last, off season with players such as Zay Jones having a borderline Pro Bowl season, and then other players disappearing. I'm not sure if we had any RFAs leave last off season. I think Alex Ingold was one, but I don't recall necessarily. So you have some players that got us some picks that we're going to be having in the draft. But outside of that, yeah, it's going to be a very interesting offseason.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, obviously they have a lot to work with in the draft anyway you cut it. As you mentioned, they have some conditional picks coming up as well. They have a top 6 pick now. So, I mean, they have a lot of opportunity here to even, as I think Ray pointed out earlier in the show, just draft a quarterback, and then even if you want to go defense the rest of the way, I think in theory that's a situation that Brady might find favorable. And like I said, the quarterback depth chart trio of Brady, Stidham, and a drafted quarterback. Most realistically, I think we could say would and should be a guy like Will Levis, just based on the draft position and what teams ahead of us will probably end up doing. Like I said, you have the young guy in Levis who could represent your future, who can come in into the NFL and just learn the McDaniel system right away. You have a backup in Stidham who knows the playbook and knows what McDaniels wants. Could come in, God forbid, an injury were to happen. And like I said, he can teach the playbook not only to a quarterback, but to the entire team. And then finally, you have the ultimate win now guy in Brady, who obviously is very familiar with the system. It really seems like if he's going to continue playing football beyond this year, doesn't really want to stay with the Bucs, especially because it would be a very clean break from them, given that he's going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of this year. I believe he's a UFA. I don't think he's an RFA.
Yeah, he's a UFA.
Right, he's a UFA. So I just think that makes the most amount of sense. I mean, as I also said earlier, I can't see what a guy like, Jimmy G would offer that Carr wouldn't, especially when we're talking about injury proneness. I mean, if that's going to be our big quarterback move, then, we're risking him getting injured, in week 5, and then we lose him for like 6 weeks out of the season. And, the season's probably already over because you have to rely on a guy like Stidham who, at best could be, hit or miss based on the
two games we saw him playing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Either he looks like, Dan Marino or he looks like a backup quarterback. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I hate to say it, but, like I said, as somebody who's bashed Tom Brady as much as I have in my life, and I'm not going to, say that I haven't, I'm not going to lie about that. I definitely have. And obviously there have been jokes on the internet about the NFL script and whatnot, but being that next year the Super Bowl is in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium, if we get Brady, and we have this, run to the Super Bowl and we have the home Super Bowl in Allegiant,
maybe something cooks.
Right, the NFL script could really kick in there. So, we'll have to see, but yeah, I just, like I said, and obviously you agree as well, the most realistic win now option at quarterback is Tom Brady. I mean, and to me it is frustrating because I really still think that they can or that they could have won with Carr. I still think that they would have needed to build more around him. But at the same time, I was thinking about this too today, is that, it's possible that maybe not right away to begin the season, McDaniels and the rest of the coaching staff gave up on Carr, but when they saw how Brady was struggling, especially in the early stages of this season, how Brady was struggling with the Bucks, maybe McDaniels thought more and more, okay, I need to scapegoat and really dismantle Carr's season as much as possible so I can go out and get Brady, because something like that seems to only make sense when you think about, like I said, how he dismantled Carr's season, how he dismantled the season as a whole. And, when you think about, out of all the win now quarterback options that are probably going to be available, I mean, there's maybe like a 1% to 2% chance of getting Lamar. But other than that, I mean, there's really not going to be any big free agent quarterback gets this season outside of, like I said, you're probably going to have to roll the dice on either Tom Brady or maybe possibly Aaron Rodgers. But between you and me, Aaron Rodgers, if he might be able to get you to a good regular season finish, but he has just if you ask me, he has so many chokes, honestly, as as a playoff quarterback, for me to not be really comfortable with that, especially if if you're going to roll the dice with Rodgers, you might as well roll the dice with Brady, because at least Brady has proven to be able to win multiple championships. So,
and yeah, there's that too to think of, because Rodgers, although he might be or might have had the greater prime, he probably I don't think he's been a more clutch QB, and considering how close the games were this year, even with how trash the defense and offense were at times, I think in this type of situation you would rather have Brady lead like a game-winning drive where you need a touchdown as opposed to Rodgers.
Right, exactly. And honestly, I mean, I don't know if you watched the game last night, the Lions Packers.
I did. Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, to me, it just kind of seemed like Rodgers, he either didn't really care about the game, he kind of wanted his season to end, or he just doesn't, which could mean he doesn't have the competitive fire in him, or he's really lost his ability, because those interceptions that he threw, I mean, one was called back, thankfully for him, by the legal hands to the face call on the Lions. But I mean, that really didn't affect the throw that much. And the last interception he threw, which ended up sealing the fate for the Packers, that was a rookie mistake. I mean, obviously, the pass rush got there. I think it was Anzalone who came through the A gap. A veteran quarterback like him should know that you shouldn't just throw up a 50-50 ball when you're about to be pushed down to the ground by a pass rusher. So I don't know. Yeah, I just look at that and I say, like, either he's lost like the ability to be a marquee contender in this league because he had way more interceptions this year than he's thrown, at least in the past several seasons. So that's a really bad sign, if you ask me. But also, like, I just don't know if he has that fire in him, like he wants to really like be that guy anymore, you know. And I get that athletes get to that point, but like, I don't know, at least with Brady, like I said, like the one big thing you can say is that like Todd Bowles was probably holding not just him back, but like the entire offense. He just didn't want them to do all the, open it up as much as Bruce Arians allowed them to.
Yeah.
So to
all
me,
I know is that Todd Bowles was a hack as a head coach for the Jets,
right?
And it looks like it's happened again here for the Bucs. And yeah, Brady really has lost a step. Bowles has done a really good job trying to mask that, but if he still really has that ability, Bowles should be fired. That's I think that's my opinion on that. But as for like you said, Brady coming here would probably be. I think it's a broken record. Brady here, he could ideal fit with McDaniels and, the system.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, the other thing, of course, is that if Brady were to come here and win a Super Bowl, can we really be that mad about the Tuck rule anymore? I mean, obviously, it will always go down as one of the worst calls in NFL history, but can we still be mad about it if he made up for it in the ultimate way, which is, bringing this franchise a title? I don't think we can be very mad about it, But I don't know, yeah, like I said, I mean, any way you cut it, like it does seem like Brady is the best option of all of our options right now because if you're going to move on from Carr, if for whatever reason, then I don't think I completely understand why McDaniels didn't ultimately didn't like Carr, but it's clear that he didn't or he doesn't anymore. Outside of him, I think you have to roll the dice on Brady. That seems to be the only thing possible.
Well, it's a good thing we're not the GMs of this team because I don't really want to make this decision and piss off half the fan base and then piss off another third of it with the QB we decide to pick.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm glad they're taking the fall and not us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm glad they get they get paid the big bucks and we don't because I don't want that pressure. I guess another thing, sort of speaking of this franchise, this regime, if you will. I want to get others' take on it, but you're the only one left. So I wanted to get your take on what you thought about the whole business with over the past several games, the Raiders security staff basically kicking people out for voicing their opinion. Do you?
Yeah, I put this on my story for my account. I said this organization is turning into a bunch of men that whine like bitches or something like that.
Right.
Your ego should not be that fragile to the point where you're offended that fans are half serious and half joking that your coach should be fired.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can't exactly remember what this sign said. It was something like "We deserve better," which
there was that
is
one.
complete. Yeah, it's almost anonymous. Like it just shows that the team or the fans want better from the team. It doesn't even say anything with fire McDaniels or we want Bisaccia back, we want Carr. There was nothing there. It's just real pussy shit to say in a vulgar manner that this is exactly what Davis is doing or ordering because even from the head of security, it's got to come from up top, which means it's got to be passed down the chain of command, which means Davis is the one that's doing all this. And maybe there's a reason behind it. Maybe he doesn't want his team distracted, but I think it's bullshit because it's words. It's just words. That's all it is. And it's not even being spoken. It's just being put on a sign for anyone to read at their pleasure. You don't even have to look at it if you don't want to. So I think it's a bunch of BS.
Did the guy who had the "They Deserve Better" sign, did he get kicked out too?
Yeah, there was a video of him being kicked out by a few people Actually, one of them got an angle from a Chiefs fan who was right next to him. I don't exactly remember what the security had said to him, but I remember there was two guards there, or security personnel, and they had to escort him out. So
wow. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I totally agree. Like, I hate to say it, and this is a really bad sign for this franchise because it's a comparison that I heard the other day that with another owner from another sport that is really not a guy you want to be compared to, but it's really just some James Dolan shit. Obviously the owner of the Knicks, because he
yeah,
was doing the same thing. Like, if you voice an opinion against him, he will take action. He'll kick you out. It's really just it's a fascist kind of like approach to your fan base, and it's you just not taking responsibility for the fact that in the very least, like, because these
few
fans have
causes.
a right,
Yeah,
right, they have a right to express their opinion, and they're upset, and you don't take into account, like, okay, they're upset, like, to me, I would have just said it like, just let it go, just let them have their signs, and then like prove them wrong. Like, if you really think McDaniels is the guy, then just like, prove them wrong next year, right? Like, just because you at the end of the day, you have the power to fire him or not, and if you're not going to fire him, and you think he's the guy, and they go out and like they have whatever, at least some degree of success, then everyone's going to be happy again. But like, obviously this year everybody knows it, like, even a basic understanding of football will tell you that, like, this was a very disappointing season, even if it was on purpose, like, even if it was a tank. And there've also just been there have been honestly some fireable offenses, like losing to an ESPN analyst is one. Even if you're tanking, it's pathetic. I mean, so
blowing multiple double-digit leads, specifically as 3 17-point leads in the first half of the season. That's insane. I've never heard a team do that. And then you blow 5 10 plus halftime or 10 plus point halftime leads to teams like the Cardinals, the 49ers, the Jaguars, the Rams, and what's the other team? I can't remember the other team. Why can't I remember the Cardinals, Jags, 49ers, Rams, and I can't remember the other team, but I remember seeing from Dubois the stat that blown multiple double-digit leads this season. It was like up in 5,
well,
almost
the
was
Niners,
6.
the Niners was too, because you're up by double digits.
Yeah, I did mention them.
Did you say the Chiefs? That was a
no, yeah, that's the other one. I keep
Yeah.
forgetting that we were actually had a close game against them in the first meeting.
Yeah, I mean, that one in particular, I don't mind that we like blew the lead because, it's the Chiefs, like it was going to be a close game, so you could sort of view that as like going back and forth. But even
I'm kind of
still, like, there were a lot of questionable decisions made by McDaniels in that game. That and that's a concerning thing. Like, is he going to learn from it? Does he already know better and he was just doing it on purpose? These are all questions that, like, have been surrounding him this entire year, and I'm worried. I'm worried, honestly, because this is a guy who traded up to draft Tim Tebow. We have to remember this. So this this guy's, he has the nuclear codes. He has top six pick right now, and he has the ability to potentially trade Derek Carr. Is he going to trade up to draft somebody who's a complete bust, or to to trade for a guy who has no business being our starter? I'm worried. I mean, I know the narrative surrounding him was that he's learned his lesson. So I remember that was the big phrase, leading up to his head coaching candidacy and all that. There was all this talk apparently throughout the league that he'd learned his lesson. He learned his lesson. He knows that he messed up in Denver, but he went back to New England and he gained a lot more experience, and he got humbled and all this other crap. So I mean, to be fair, if we're gonna say that, then Matt Patricia deserves another chance as head coach because you could just say the same thing. You could say like, well, he
Yeah.
screwed up in Detroit, and is anyone to give Matt Patricia another chance?
Well, I think there's a difference between. I mean, obviously the answer is no, but the difference between Patricia and McDaniels was that Patricia was a cancer in the Lions locker room. I mean, you
Mhm.
had players openly revolting against him, like a
Right.
mutiny, in his final season in Detroit, and it was just a clown show over there in Motor City while he was the coach over there. Just
Mhm.
completely put that franchise in the dirt. You could
Yeah.
argue the same thing for McDaniels, but I think McDaniels has more likability to his character, whatever that would mean. Um, and I think the players are less prone to trying to start a mutiny against his
Mhm.
coach because he actually seems like a good play caller. So there's that.
Yeah, I sort of see. I mean, in terms of like his character, like his personality. Honestly, at this point, I don't think he's like a good guy. Like I don't think he's a quality human being. But I think we can. Even if we win with him, then like I'll still believe that he's not really just like the guy you want to run through a brick wall for. So I guess that's okay as long as we win. Obviously, that's our motto: just win, baby. Um, but so I don't know if I agree with you there. But I'm just saying, like, and like, I'm not saying that Matt Patricia should get another head coach job. I'm just saying that if we're just going by that narrative, if you will, that the media was trying to push, which was that, like, McDaniels, he got humbled from his first head coaching experience, and he went back to New England, and that, he got humbled because he stayed with Belichick for 7 more years, and now all of a sudden, you know, he's a changed man, if you will. Or a changed coach at least. So. Um,
I mean, you could also argue he didn't change at all after,
right.
the debacle in Indy before they hired Frank Reich.
Right. They left he left the Colts at the altar, probably because he knew he couldn't handle a job like that, at least not yet. But now, of course, that was what? That was in 2012.
18.
That was
Yeah, it was after Pagano got fired. So that was
right.
2018.
Oh, you're right. Okay. Right. Yeah, so I mean, so okay, so he spent what, another 4 years in New England
Yeah, 5 years.
between then and then yeah, and then, so I don't know. I mean, I guess technically the jury's still out, and we'll have to see. I mean, like I said, Davis isn't firing him, so we have to stick with him. Um, we'll see what it is. So what? So along the same vein, how do you feel about Ziegler? Do you first of all think? Can you imagine a scenario where, despite being basically McDaniel's best friend and being his college roommate and having gone through all this stuff with him, can you imagine a scenario where he fires McDaniels and stays on as the GM, or yeah, just answer that question, then we'll get to the second one.
I think they
That's a
both
crazy one.
go. They came like a pair in the first,
Right,
when they were hired, whether people think about it.
right,
And because Davis had the word on, Ziegler from his time in New England, that would, allude to McDaniels being the guy that Ziegler would fall with if they both fucked up. And I don't see Ziegler getting a way out if McDaniels is the fall guy. That I think they both collapse together.
right. As well as Graham too, right? You would think.
I think Graham would be gone before either of them. Um, I
Okay.
think this team is just much less patience for defensive coordinators, considering we've been so terrible for the last 20 years on that side of the ball.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I I feel like I could sort of see, although I still, because obviously Graham has history in the New England system and being a New England guy, and obviously that was McDaniel's choice as a coordinator. So I still feel like for that reason Graham's part of that package as well. Um, I don't. I still, yeah. I feel like it would just be a sweeping fire of everybody, because Ziegler, McDaniels. The funny thing about them is, in a lot of ways, they don't really seem to be on the same page, I guess. But maybe that's just because I was thinking in terms of it seems so much like Ziegler, set up the team to be win now, but that actually wasn't true. It only seemed that way. The reality was he was just locking up a core, like as Al's Ghost mentioned earlier, like you know, just locking up enough guys to keep 11 of them in the locker room or whatever, and then everyone else just completely, you know,
Expendable.
goes off somewhere else, fucks off, whatever. Um, so, yeah, I don't know. Do you think that do you think Ziegler? Could you see Ziegler, being a GM of another team, or was this just a one and done if he doesn't succeed here?
Uh, I think because of his development over there in New England, just because it hasn't worked so far here in Vegas doesn't mean that all of that has gone away. So I do think if he tries to get another chance, he will have another chance. But it definitely will take time for teams to trust that he will be the guy again.
Right. So do you think it's possible that we could see him being paired with another head coach? In other words, is it possible that if he were paired with another head coach, he would find success because he has shown the ability to set up a good team? Because this really could have been a playoff team, um, but McDaniel's wanted to tank, and so that is the way that is. But so do you think that it's possible for him to be paired with another head coach in the future as a GM to
In
where
the
he
future,
would find
I think you can have another head coach not named McDaniels.
right,
I think that's a possibility for sure. It's just all about who you want to have as your next coach.
right,
And I think I know everyone talked about it earlier, but Mick Lombardi does turn out to be a good OC if McDaniels does relinquish his play calling abilities at some point, and he does turn out to be a good OC, and they both get fired. I think Lombardi would be a good choice for Ziegler to pair up with again. It's all about that connection. If you can establish it, that's what's going to determine if he's going to be picking a new head coach or not.
so are you saying that Mick Lombardi would be in line to be the head coach after
I
McDaniel? What do
think
you
I think in a scenario if where McDaniels relinquishes his play calling abilities and
right?
Lombardi excels or like becomes a good coordinator all of a sudden like that, um, then yeah, if I believe that Lombardi could be a good coach paired under Ziegler. And I know McDaniels and Ziegler have that like relationship together as good friends and stuff like that. But it's at the end of the day, it's a business, and you're
Right.
gonna be forced to, you know, pick with someone else that you're gonna have to be responsible rather
Hmm.
than just fuck around with.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I still like, the one thing about the whole McDaniel Ziegler thing is that we have seen a lot of cases, and usually it has more to do with coaches. Only all the examples that I can think of only have to do within the realm of just being a coach with pairing up with certain coordinators. But there still is a big element of loyalty and like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So, because of that, it's possible that Ziegler would feel like, because we sort of came up together and we got hired together, he wouldn't want to ruin his relationship with McDaniels because it's possible that they both could go back to New England, or it's possible they could find themselves potentially in another relationship together. So he might not want to risk his relationship with McDaniels by firing him. Also, like I said, probably his best friend from everything we know. So because there could be a mutual loyalty there, um, that I've seen once again only within the realm of coaching, but could also potentially apply to GMs and head coaches. Like, for example, we were just talking about Todd Bowles. Obviously, Todd Bowles has always been the right hand man of Bruce Arians, and even to the point where it really seems like because Bruce Arians, elevated from head coach to into the front office of the Bucks, he was really able to have a lot of say and sway, especially because he just brought them a Super Bowl. A lot of sway as far as picking the head coach, and because he has that loyalty to Todd Bowles and everything that he's done for him and been his right hand man, he feels like Todd Bowles has earned this, and so even though he knows really that Todd Bowles is not meant to be a head coach in this league, he influenced the Bucks off management to name him the head coach. So I just bring up that example to show to really just sort of bring up how much loyalty does exist in this league, and so the McDaniels Ziegler thing could just be another example of that. But I don't know, it would be nice to see Ziegler, after a while, because the reality is Ziegler is McDaniels' boss in terms of how NFL franchises work. Technically speaking, that's the reality. And so, as a GM, as an adult, if you look at the situation like, okay, you're not cutting it, I want to keep my job, and so we're going to relieve you of your duties. So that would be the mature, really like independent thing to do on Ziegler's part, but I just don't know. I don't know if he has that in him. I still don't know enough about Ziegler to make that judgment, but we're gonna see. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not personal until you make it personal. That's what it's all about. There's a reason it's a business. So
Right.
it's just because the feelings don't get hurt in the end of the day. If you make it about all relationships and shit like that, yeah, the relationships will be damaged and feelings are gonna be hurt. So it would be smart to not make it like relationship focused if you're Ziegler or McDaniels, but we don't really know what goes on or what uh their relationship is in terms of coach and GM, or they're just friends with roles of power.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you'd hope that the silly little politics, like I just mentioned, wouldn't really play a factor. But yeah, like you said, I mean, it's not personal, so you make it personal. So there's probably, you know, um, or hopefully there's a lack of there's a lack of cronyism, if you will, and more of an emphasis on professionalism. So we hope that's the case because honestly, I mean, what McDaniel's has a 4-year deal, or he was signed to a
Uh,
4-year deal.
I think so. I'm not exactly sure on the details of the deal right now. I can't remember them.
Okay, I just remember because I think because obviously they never really release how much money a coach is paid for whatever reason. That's just not ever mentioned in sports media. But I think it was a 4-year deal. So if that's true, I mean, definitely after next year, the 2023-2024 year, um, if he's not cutting it, I mean, you get to 2.5 years, so somewhere in year 3, I would say, or I would think that you're just looking for a reason to just fire. It could be like something that's because that happens all the time. Something that's not necessarily a head coach's fault. Um, you know, like some crazy play or a blown loss or whatever, or blown lead. Um, you look for right away an excuse to fire him, but I don't know. At the same time, Mark Davis is the boss of everyone, so he might just say, "Screw it," and fire, all 3 of them just as a package, and then sort of get that regime out of here. And it's just one of them things didn't work out, but I don't know. It's like I said, it's gonna be a leap of faith. It's gonna be something that we're gonna have to hope works out, and as the media said going into last offseason, we're gonna have to hope that McDaniels, learned his lesson and whatnot.
I think that's all we can do right now. Just hope.
Yeah, you're right. Was there any like final topic you wanted to bring up for tonight? Because I'm pretty close. I probably have another like 10 minutes in me or so before I personally have some fun.
Yeah, I'm out of topics and I'm probably out of energy right now too. So I'm just about to head out.
Word. All right, man. Well, as always, thank you for joining. Salute.
Yes, sir.
Good luck with your class and all that in college. Hopefully, see you soon. Not only on the internet but on the show. You're always welcome, as always. And thanks for always giving great points and contributing in the way that you do. And here's to hopefully a better season come next year.
The next year.
Peace,
All
man.
right. Yeah, peace, bro.
Good night, dude.
Same to you.
Peace. All right. So with the last member of our panel clocking out for the night. Later, Rudy. Salute. Thanks for joining again. Just one last time, thank you guys for joining. Thank you to the mods in the chat for holding it down. Thank you to the members of this panel for joining. Had some great talk. Had some great conversation. Just as a last reminder, one last time, I'm going to put the links to all three of our platforms in the comments right here, just to give you guys a last chance to like this video, subscribe, and punch the notification bell for all three of the platforms that we are currently broadcasting on. Once again, that's the DSR Aftermath YouTube, the Death Star Report YouTube, and the DSR Aftermath Twitch channel. So, like I said, I'm going to put the links in right there. Just like this video, subscribe, and punch the notification bell in order to stay fully tapped in with us and what we do, just so you can have up to the minute, notifications and updates on everything that we do. So without further ado, salute Raider Nation, just win baby. Here's to a much improved offseason and hopefully much more success in the 2023 to 2024 offseason. All right. Salute, Raider Nation. Have a good night. Just real quick reminder. As always, we'll be having our next show this Wednesday, the 11th at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern time. So feel free to check in our Wednesday night live show, as we always have. And once again, have a great night, guys. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, and punch the notification bell on all 3 of our platforms. That's the DSR Aftermath. That's the Death Star Report YouTube channel, DSR Aftermath YouTube channel, and the DSR Twitch channel. So without further ado, peace out, Raider Nation. Have a good night.
Wake up to the sounds of the silence that allows for my mind to run around with my ear up to the ground. I'm searching to behold the stories that I told when my back is to the world. Was smiling when I turned.
Thinking out the box, I'm an astronaut. I blasted off a planet, rock that caused catastrophe, and it matters more because I had it. Now I had a thought about wreaking havoc on an opposition, kind of shocking. They want a static with precision. I'm automatic, quarterback, I ain't talking shit.